All right, it's 6:30 now. I'm going to start the webinar.
Need 3 more.
Yep. Hey, Christina, Cindy, and Julio.
Hi.
Good
Hi.
evening.
We don't have a quorum yet.
Okay. What happens if there's no quorum?
And we can't have a meeting. That's happened in the past with this particular meeting. And then we sometimes have it or have had it at like 5:30 the day of the board meeting.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'll be back in just a sec.
We
I mean,
need
there
2
are
more.
potential solutions that aren't great, like the board could just say, hey, we're supporting the same thing we did last year. I
Oh.
suppose the board could do that.
We need 1 more, Jeremy.
But yeah, we're gonna get it. Although John isn't connecting to audio, so I won't have him on attendance.
Okay.
But in this format, I'm pretty certain we're gonna get it, even if it's a couple of minutes late.
So it's open to the public, but the public didn't join? Or it's not open to the public?
It's open to the public. The public can join now. We rarely have public, members of the public who join this meeting. And I'll give you an example why. John Johnston is at another meeting today, which is for participatory budgeting, which actually involves money.
Mhm. Yeah.
This
Oh,
is
that's
more
why that's
personal.
up on the screen.
I'm sorry.
That's why that budget spent on is on the screen.
That's where he is, but he's not connecting to the audio right now.
Okay.
So it looks like he stepped away
Yep.
and isn't in front of his computer to connect to the audio. And I think that that's just his background, his virtual background.
Okay, I know he's at that other meeting right now. So that might be what he made his, oh, there he is. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6.
Well, how does the public find out about this?
We put it out the same way we do every meeting. We put out emails. It's on social media. It's on our calendar. It's on the Link NYC kiosks.
Okay.
We do have a quorum now. Would you like me to call roll or would you like to give it a couple of more minutes?
I guess we can give it a few more minutes, maybe 2. Okay, maybe 1.
Just give me the word.
Okay, let's do it. Somebody's joining.
Yes. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the public hearing for the Community Board's annual capital and expense priorities. This is the first year that we have a finance committee instead of a capital and expense committee. So Christina Lem is our new chair for this committee. As a reminder to all of our board members, This is the first of two meetings tonight. This is the public hearing to be immediately followed by the Finance Committee, which will discuss what's in the public hearing tonight. So we're going to start by calling roll, and we'll start with Ramon Acevedo. Ramon Acevedo. Oh, just a reminder, I'm going to mute everybody. Please remember to unmute yourself when I call your name. Then acknowledge your name and then mute yourself again. Amel Afzal. Amel Afzal. Sandra Alfonso.
Present, good evening.
Thank you. Grisel Amador. Grisel Amador. Hannah Sisakino. Hannah Sisakino. Nicholas Azadian. Nicholas Azadian. Joan Body.
Here,
Thank you. Stacy Boyd. Stacy Boyd. Gladys Bruno. Gladys Bruno. Joseph Canale. Joseph Canale. Jerry Chan. Jerry Chan. Justin Collins. Justin Collins. Christina Das. Christina Das. John DeLuper.
Present.
Thank you. Beatrice DeSapio. Beatrice DeSapio. David Estrada. David Estrada. Cynthia Felix. Cynthia Felix. John Fontillis. John Fontillis. Kin Fung. Kin Fung. John Garcia. John Garcia. Cynthia Gonzalez. Cynthia Gonzalez. Diana Gonzalez. Diana Gonzalez. Hector Gonzalez. Hector Gonzalez. Kenny Guan. Kenny Guan. Nicole Huang. Nicole Huang. John Johnston.
I'm here.
Thank you. Beverly Kleinman.
Present.
Thank you. Wyco. Wyco. Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee. Christina Lim.
I'm here.
Thank you. Jimmy Lee. Jimmy Lee. Leonette Lopez. Leonette Lopez. Paul Mack. Paul Mack. Antoinette Martinez. Antoinette Martinez. Arelis Martinez. Arelis Martinez. Marilyn Melman. Marilyn Melman. Myra Molina. Myra Molina. Dan Murphy. Dan Murphy. Julio Pena III.
Present.
Thank you. Rovika Rajkishan. Rovika Rajkishan. Karen Rolnick. Karen Rolnick. Patricia Ruiz. Patricia Ruiz. Damaris Santiago. Damaris Santiago. Sam Sierra.
Present. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Victor Swinton.
Present.
Thank you. Cindy Vanden Bosch.
Present.
Thank you. Catherine Walsh.
Present.
Thank you. Fred Wolf. Fred Wolf. Cesar Zuniga. Cesar Zuniga. Christina, roll has been called. 11 members are present. That constitutes a quorum for tonight.
Are you going to be leading this?
I'm happy to, but I was wondering if you were going to tell me to, but yes, happy to.
Yes, I'll be figurehead for today. This will be the only time that'll ever happen. So,
So again, good evening, everybody. After that roll call, I'm all talked out already. Let me get a swig here. Okay, most of you have been through this before. This is the public hearing portion. Gabino, you will be called during the committee meeting. This is the public hearing. The public hearing, only the board members get called. Committee meeting is the second meeting tonight. So we're doing the capital and expense budget. These are the priorities that we voted on last year and prioritized and voted on. We're going to start with the capital budget. I am going to read off all of our priorities from last year, as well as the various agencies' responses. I would ask you to hold off questions on these items until I'm finished with them, and please use the raise hand function. I'll try to get through these as quick as possible. If you would like to discuss new items, please hold off until we have the discussion on the old items, and then we could discuss prioritizing. Cindy, I'm good. Okay. Priority 1, reconstruct streets, allocate funds for the design and reconstruction of 3rd Avenue from 65th to 17th Street to include all service roads with safer pedestrian crossings and improved lighting at every intersection. Agency response, OMB supports the agency's position as follows. Further study by the agency if this request is needed. Priority 2, renovate interior building component. Rehabilitate all non-ADA compliant schools and facilities within schools to ensure they are 100% accessible to all student populations. Agency response, OMB supports the agency's position as follows. This request includes more than one proposal. Funding for part is recommended. Priority 3, renovate, upgrade, or provide new community board facilities and equipment. Purchase fixed and portable equipment to allow Community Board 7 Brooklyn to hold blended meetings in the board and in locations around the district. Agency response, further investigation of this request is needed. Contact the agency. Priority 4, other capital budget requests for NICTA. Deck over the MTA property between 36th Street and 39th Street from 6th to 8th Avenues to provide space to build housing for those with low incomes and essential workers. Agency response, for information regarding the status of this request, contact a general number at the MTA. Priority 5, other capital budget requests for NICTA. Deck over MTA property on 38th Street between 4th and 5th Avenues to provide space to build housing for those with low incomes and essential workers. Same answer as the last one. Priority 6, invest in capital projects to improve access to the waterfront. Full funding for construction of Bush Terminal Park through Phase 2, including playground, environmental center, and Pier 5. Although the park is open, EDC has not provided all the amenities promised to this community. Adopted agency response, OMB supports the agency's position as follows. This request includes more than one proposal. Funding for part is recommended. Priority 7, repair or upgrade subway stations or other transit infrastructure. Add shelters for every bus stop on the B63 route in CD7. Contact MTA. Priority 8, other capital budget requests for EDC. EDC should provide free Wi-Fi access to all of CD7. Agency response, the request does not seem to be applicable to the responsible agency. OMB cannot make a determination at this time. Priority 9, repair or provide new streetlights. Rehabilitate lights beneath the Gowanus Expressway and add shorter streetlights to Third Avenue. OMB supports the agency's position as follow. Further study by the agency of this request is needed. Priority 10, other capital budget requests for DEP. Replace sewer pipes in First Avenue from 39th to 58th Street, which was cut out of the 2005 street rehabilitation. Green infrastructure should be included wherever feasible. Further investigation of this request is needed. Contact the agency. Priority 11, renovate, upgrade, or provide new community board facilities and equipment. Rehabilitate Community Board 7 restrooms to ensure ADA compliance, lobby, plumbing, electrical, and HVAC systems, and security. CB7, despite being in a city-owned building, is non-ADA compliant. DCAS has had the money for almost a decade. This is an embarrassment to New York City. That was my doing. The project is included in the 10-year plan. Priority 12, reconstruct or upgrade a park or amenity. Rehabilitate Martin Luther Playground. OMB supports the agency's position as follows. Essentially means ask your elected officials because Parks Department has no capital budget. Priority 13, provide new or upgrade existing sanitation garage or other sanitation infrastructure. Acquire site for a new BK7 garage off the waterfront in order to build the first zero emissions sanitation garage and fueling facility. The current facility is too small to house the technology and ancillary equipment necessary to meet the city's 2040 goal. Agency response to the request is not recommended for funding. Priority 14, repair or upgrade subway stations or other transit infrastructure. Create secondary entrances, exits at all subway stations in CD7. This is necessary for mobility and safety and public safety reasons. Contact MTA. Priority 15, improve accessibility of transit infrastructure by providing elevators, escalators, etc. Add 3 elevators and renovate the 15th Street Prospect Park Station on the F line to improve station and ensure it is handicap accessible. Contact the MTA. Priority 16, reconstruct or upgrade a park or amenity, rehabilitate Demick Playground. It is recommended that this request be brought to the attention of your elected officials. Priority 17, provide a new or expand an existing elementary school, allocate funds for site acquisition, design, and construction of a new early childhood learning center to serve students of the Sunset Park Windsor Terrace communities. Community district is located in a school district with identified seat need. Location for school will be based on site and funding availability. Priority 18, reconstruct or upgrade a park or amenity, reconstruct Rainbow Playground. This project has already been funded, but the community board should reach out to the agency with more detail regarding this request. Priority 20, invest in capital projects to improve access to the waterfront. Allocate funds for a bathroom at the Brooklyn Army Terminal campus adjacent to the 58th Street Pier and available to the pier's patrons. This request is not recommended for funding. Priority 20, reconstruct or upgrade a park or amenity, rehabilitate Peña Herrera Park. It is recommended you reach out to your elected officials. Priority 21, reconstruct or upgrade a park or amenity, rehabilitate Placencia Park, including higher fences to prevent damage to surrounding homes. Reach out to your elected officials. Priority 22, reconstruct or upgrade a park or amenity, rehabilitate basketball and handball courts at Greenwood Park. Contact your elected officials. Priority 23, invest in capital projects to improve access to waterfront, build a ramp to replace stairs on the 63rd Street walkway to the Brooklyn Army Terminal building. Stairs are not accessible. Further study is needed by the agency. Priority 24, improve accessibility of transit infrastructure by providing elevators, escalators, etc. Add elevators to make 36th Street Station on the NR line handicap accessible. Contact MTA. Priority 25, reconstruct or upgrade a building in a park, replace all windows in the Sunset Park Recreation Center. This request is partially funded. Contact Parks. Priority 26, other capital budget requests for DOE. Replace playground equipment in PS 971 with age-appropriate equipment. The school was built as an early childhood center, but the population up to grade 5. As such, the play equipment is inadequate for older children. Unable to prioritize funding for this project request at this time. Priority 27. Other capital budget requests for DEP. Establish a design and reconstruction contract for Fifth Avenue between 34th and 65th Streets, including sewers, mains, pedestrian plazas, historic lighting, and other public amenities, and include an incentive clause for early completion. This project was supposed to start in 1988. It has been repeatedly delayed to now 2022, later than that now. DOT blames DEP's lack of a budget. Further investigation of this request is needed. Priority 28, other capital budget requests for DEP. Rehabilitate the sewer pipe and add green infrastructure on 33rd and 34th Street between 4th and 5th Avenues. Further investigation is required. Contact the agency. Priority 29, reconstruct streets. Rehabilitate 2nd Avenue between 29th and 42nd Street and removed unused rail. EDC was supposed to have done this in the 2005 project, but removed it without community notice. OMB supports the agency's position as follows. This project is included in the 10-year plan. Priority 30, roadway maintenance. Increase funds for pothole repair in CD7. The Borough Commissioner's Office has reviewed this request and it has been denied. Priority 31, reconstruct streets. Fund the reconstruction of 39th Street from 2nd Avenue to the western terminus. No study is recommended or planned at this time. Priority 32, which is strange because we just had a meeting on this and it's happening. Priority 32, improve access to a building in a park. Replace sidewalks and curbs on East 4th Street between Fort Hamilton Parkway and Caton Avenue at the community garden. The adjacent property owner is New York City. Agency response, this request is not recommended for funding. Priority 33, create a new or renovate or upgrade an existing public library. Allocate for acquisition, design, and construction of an additional library in Sunset Park adjacent to 7th or 8th Avenues. The study by the agency of this request is needed. Priority 34, repair or construct new curbs or pedestrian ramps. Replace sidewalks on Fort Hamilton Parkway between East 5th Street and the bridge over the Prospect Expressway. Adjacent property owner is New York City. Agency response, sidewalks are the responsibility of the adjacent property owner. For curb repair, please submit specific locations to the Borough Commissioner for review. Priority 35, provide a new or expand an existing high school. Allocate funds for site acquisition, design, and construction of a new high school in CD7. Sunset Park High School opened in 2009, the only high school in the district and is beyond capacity, as are the schools in neighboring communities. It took 40 years of effort to get Sunset Park High School. The community board feels it is necessary to start the process again, given the time scale. Community district is located in a borough without identified high school seat need. Location for schools is based upon site and funding availability. Priority 31, allocate funds for site acquisition, design, and construction for a new elementary school in the Sunset Park Windsor Terrace community. Limited seat need has been identified in the area specified. Location for a school will be based on site availability. Priority 37, other transportation infrastructure requests. Add shelters and benches to all bus stops on 3rd Avenue and CD7. Please contact the Borough Commissioner with specific location. Excuse me one moment, Calvin, get off of there. Come on, get, Calvin. Hey, excuse me. Dog-related emergency. Sorry about that. Okay. Priority 38, reconstruct or upgrade a park or amenity, playground or outdoor athletic field, rehabilitate the portion of John Allen Payne Park that has not already been rehabilitated. Contact your elected officials. Priority 39, improve access to a park or amenity. Add accessible swings and other accessible equipment to all playgrounds in CD7. Playground equipment with amenities accessible for people with disabilities are included in our capital projects, meaning all new projects. Priority 40, provide a new or expanded park or amenity. Build a dog run in Sunset Park. It is recommended that this request be brought to the attention of your elected officials. So that are the 40 priorities that we had for the capital budget. A reminder, as in years past, we are limited to 40. So if we want to add something, we have to remove something. So if anybody would like to discuss any of the items that are on our list or the agency's responses, now would be a good time. I see Joan Body's hand.
Hi, everybody. Well, of course, I'm annoyed with all of the responses because the city, they don't take any responsibility for anything. Just hand it over to whoever. I would suggest to remove any item that they completely have denied. I think there was 2, Jeremy, number, if I'm not mistaken, number 19 was 1.
Number 19 was the bathrooms for the pier. So let me,
To me,
Fine.
that's a necessity, but
well, there are, I think the reason they're not doing it is they found a quick and cheap way to do it, which is to have porta potties. So there are bathroom facilities, they're just not permanent facilities. So what was so you would like to discuss removing 19, and what was the other one?
it was a high number.
If you could look through that and find that while we have somebody else speak, I would greatly appreciate it. We could get back to you, John.
Okay.
I have Cindy Vandenbosch next.
Yeah, so 2 things. One, Jeremy, could you describe what capital budget means for people maybe that are new to this process? What
Capital
that
budget is
includes?
infrastructure. When we do expense budget, that's programs. So capital budget are things like reconstructing a street or a park. Expense budget would be like staffing a school, or with an art teacher, or finding money for a senior center program.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, number 6, they that one indicates splitting, or that one says there's more than one proposal.
Right, because part of this has been split off. So if you remember, we had the meeting with them about, actually, we had the meeting with EDC about Steiner Studios, the playground that they're building in the park. So part of this has been funded through Steiner Studios. It hasn't started yet. And what I was told when I started this job, don't take things off the list that haven't started yet. Wait until the shovel is in the ground.
Okay, got it. Okay, all right. So
Hopefully it'll be worth splitting off next year.
right,
but-
and I guess that's the same point for anything else where they say that that's just one example, but there are others.
I would say ask me about it first, because some they're not always the most logical in some of these answers.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I guess that was my main question, is like, in those instances, do we think about splitting out some of these so that it's a more specific request, like from a strategic standpoint, or does it not really matter?
I'm not going to say it doesn't really matter. You saw how many things have been funded this year.
Okay. All right, all right. I'll,
We could come back to you if you have additional. I have Christina Lem next, but Christina, you're running this meeting, so you don't need my permission. You could jump in anytime. But you're muted.
New to this process, not new to that, but I do have just in terms of how this works, because I'm, this is my first time kind of being part of this. So were the priorities sent in from the community? They were sent in from the community? I
From the
saw that-
community board, we send them to OMB and DCP.
No, the actual, the reconstruction of streets, the prioritization do they come in?
Oh, I
from-
see. So that's come from various things, including the community, including board members, and including committee meetings that we've had. But it
Okay.
is things that are brought up at this public hearing every year, and this board votes on its prioritization.
And is it prioritized according to discussion and?
Yes.
vote? Okay, there's no standardized criteria. It's a discussion.
Yes.
Okay. And do like the head of transportation committee, do they like, number one, would they go and advocate for it, or it's not like that? It's just sort of on paper.
So different committee chairs will prioritize in different ways. I take note that the transportation chair is in this meeting and already has a meeting about this issue on the schedule.
Okay. And every time they say further study needed by an agency, those are feasibility studies, right? That they're talking about?
Typically, yes, but some of them, it says further study is needed. Some of these items have been on our list for 20+ years. So how much further study is actually needed? That's a way
Okay.
of saying no without saying no.
Okay. And one other, so when we talked about Wi-Fi earlier, and they said that this isn't something that is within their purview, why is that not considered infrastructure? Because I have worked on projects where Wi-Fi is considered, part of the infrastructure.
So it is considered infrastructure. This is the second year we've had it. This is the second agency we've tried with this who said, oh no, it doesn't fall under us.
Okay. Okay, maybe I'll ask you more about it offline.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. Julio?
Hi. Echoing Joan, a lot of this frustrates me because also to Christina's point, or to your point, Jeremy, about the Wi-Fi, this is the second year we've put it on, and this is the second time that it's like, this is not our responsibility, find someone else. And they're just like passing the buck. And some of their comments in terms of like, further study is just like, just saying no without actually saying no. I'm curious about some of these responses, particularly around the transit authority. Have we reached out to this mysterious number, and has there been any kind of response about
So there's no need to reach out to the number because we have our own contact there, who I've been in touch with many times. We actually have a new contact there, so I'm still getting to know him. But the reason you always have that is, remember, this is the city budget. MTA has a different budget, so the city can't make commitments for the MTA.
Oh yeah, that's right. This is a city
We
budget.
could leave all the MTA stuff out, but Cesar used to say, this is, there's no budget attached to this. This is a wish list, but it's also an expression of our values.
Absolutely. And I think also to your point, Christina, earlier, when we talk about like how we prioritize this, I think this is pretty much like what we say and what we think that should be the priorities for this district. And if we think something should be number one, then we think it should be number one. If we think it should be, lower on the list, that doesn't necessarily mean it's less of value, but we just think some things should be a higher priority. And of course, to what Jeremy said, I think it's, there's no budget attached to it. It's just like, these are the things that we think should be addressed in our district. And unfortunately, we're seeing some of these responses from the city agencies.
I just was curious about process. I'm always about process. So, okay, thanks.
You're talking to a bureaucrat here. I'm always about process too. John DeLuper is next.
All right. Speaking of some of the things that have come up, one thing I'm a little concerned about, going back to item 19, is that in the capital budget with the bathrooms at the Army terminal, if the EDC and OMB are saying that it's okay that there are porta potties there, to me, that's kind of a bogus explanation, because they don't have the porta potties there all the time. They have them sometimes. And then theoretically, right, there's a bathroom inside the Army terminal near the how do you call it? The cafe, but that I've never actually seen it open. So to my eyes, this is not having it. And since they're trying to make the pier part more of like a rec area, they've rehabilitated a lot of stuff. They did landscaping. People go down there, they have picnics and all this stuff. To say that they don't need that is kind of, to me, that's not a good thing. And it really is, it's kind of relying on people to go places that they can't, because it's a big campus and there's no bathroom facilities. And if you take the ferry, you could be waiting for an hour if it's off peak. So it's not good in my eyes. So just an expression of opinion on that.
Thank you, John. The longer answer, which they didn't supply here, but I've spoken to them about, is there isn't a sewer pipe down to there. So extending the sewer pipe would be very expensive. So that's why they try to go with the cheaper solution here.
Thank you.
I have Jerry Chan next. Jerry, I will also.
Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
That's because I muted myself. Jerry, please say present for your attendance as well.
Present.
Thank you.
I had a hard time connecting to the Zoom. Yeah, so going back to the internet thing, right? So I don't know, you guys can see behind me. This is the internet thing they're putting out throughout the city. So right behind this is high tile then Wi-Fi. So I know the agencies involved is DOT and used to be Do It and stuff. And have we reached out to those agencies to see if they could put Wi-Fi in the CB7 communities and stuff?
So we reached out to Do It last year. This year we reached out to, who was it this year? Was it?
It was EDC.
EDC. So they both claimed it's not their responsibility.
So what I find out again, in order to have this thing up, DOT have to approve this. So it's all over Chinatown right now, Manhattan. I'm in Chinatown right now. So we might have to talk to DOT to get their buy-in before we talk to other agencies and stuff. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, Jerry. And I'm marking your attendance.
Yep, and also I'm a process and procedure guy too. As an auditor, I file procedures and process.
So we're all a bunch of fun people. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna take a privilege here and call Cynthia Gonzalez for attendance purposes. Cynthia, please unmute yourself and acknowledge.
Yes, hi, I'm here.
Thank you. And Cynthia Felix, I'm calling you for attendance as well. Cynthia Felix? Cynthia, we could get back to you. I have Joan Body next.
Hear me? Present. Can you hear me?
Got you. And
Thank you.
I'll mark your attendance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have Joan Body next.
Jeremy, I have a new item. When we're ready.
Hold on, we're not doing new items yet.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a minute. This is just discussion on last year's items.
Okay.
I have Katie Walsh next.
Yeah, this is just a unsolicited comment reaction to the Link NYC. I have a bunch of questions and concerns that I'd want to have addressed before proposing that. So I think we actually would need to have them come in and come to the community for questions. Some of that's related to surveillance, some of that's related to data use, some of that's related to the actual infrastructure itself. So I just wanted to like kind of yes to the question of addressing Wi-Fi, but the how do we do it? I want to pause before we do that, and then maybe again have someone from Link NYC come in and talk to the board. So just wanted to offer that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Gabino, I'm going to ask you to hold off. I will get to you, but right now it's board members. Anybody else before we let the public come speak about these items? Board members, right now we're discussing the last year's item. I have Cindy Vanderbosch.
I'm just wondering if we, something we've discussed in the past is kind of moving some things up to draw more attention to them. And I'm just wondering if.
So we will get to priorities.
Oh, that's a different part of the meeting. Okay. Okay.
It's coming up in just a couple of minutes.
Okay.
So seeing no additional hands, I'll open up to members of the public. Right now, we are discussing the items that I just mentioned. So Gabino, this would be the time. Gabino Morales.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, CB7, for giving me the minutes to be able to participate in this important committee meeting. Do you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Gabino Morales Escamilla. I am a fairly new member on this committee, and it will always be a pleasure to work and to meet to discuss the most important priorities that need to be put into effect for our community. So thank you for hearing me out, everybody. My main objective in this committee or several committees is to decisively put faith in capital that will always ensure the progressive projects to come about, but by putting safety in play, as all the capital for projects would be a failure without safety. To be precise, I have reviewed all proposed projects that have been outlined in this committee, and soon enough, I hope all these projects will be put forth appropriately, put it in perspective, the safety of our community. I am therefore upset and worried for the future outlook for our community in regards to helping our local precincts in our areas, and only we will be in that position where we are held liable and responsible for any security purposes, ensuring that our community is safe. I would identify that in our area we need lots of cameras for this capital budget or any capital expenses that we need.
Okay, Gabino, I'm just going to
Yeah.
ask you. Right now, we're just discussing the list that we did. We're going to, in a couple of minutes, we're going to get to new items. So I'll ask you to hold off on the new item.
I copy that. Thank you very much, Jeremy. I will hold on. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to discuss the items that were on the list already? Further discuss?
For the discussion, not.
Okay,
Thank you. I'll hold on.
no problem. Be just a couple of minutes before that. I have Joan Body next.
Okay, new item?
No, not yet.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so this is the last call for discussion. Keep your hand up, Joan. This is last call for discussion on the old items. Okay, so Joan, So board members, if you would like to discuss adding new items to this list and or removing old items, please raise your hand. Gabino, I will just ask you to wait until our board members have had their opportunity, and then we're happy to take your suggestions as well. Go.
Okay, Sunset Park itself. Walkways. When we had the tour, the walkways are in terrible, terrible, terrible condition. Some of them have not been replaced in over 20 years. Some of them were replaced 11 years ago. So you go from a decent walkway, I'm not saying a good one, decent, to a terrible walkway. So I would suggest that we put in our language to replace all walkways in Sunset Park. Maybe we'll get a quarter of them, maybe.
Thank you, Joan. Do you have other items, or is that the one?
That's the one.
Thank you. I have Jerry Chan next.
Yep, thank you. The gentleman that was speaking before, I do want to propose that we should put budget in place to install more cameras, cameras in this CB7 area, especially area that have real low lights, which is another problem that's on the list. So my proposal is put a budget aside to install cameras throughout CB7. Thank you.
Jerry, I want to clarify, you mean NYPD cameras, am I correct?
NYPD and DOT, they both have cameras. I don't know,
So
you
those
know.
would be two different proposals then, because there would be two different agencies.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Muted, Jeremy.
John DeLuper.
I'm going to ask for one thing on the new, and actually this isn't really a new, it's kind of a modification of an existing one. With the street lights, has there been any discussion of making them the Vision Zero bulbs that have been now getting deployed recently?
I'm not familiar with Vision Zero bulbs. I'm familiar with Vision Zero arms.
That's what I meant.
Okay, so I know we recently got approval for about 15 of them on 6th Avenue in Sunset Park and another 3 or 4 on 7th Avenue.
All right, so is there, now the list is a little confusing. So there was one with street lights on there? That,
Nope.
no.
Nope,
Okay.
we got that in a different way. We
Okay.
asked for a lighting survey. There are different ways to make requests. This is just a list.
Okay, all right.
Throughout the year, we can make additional requests. But this
Okay.
is to get it into the budget.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Cindy Vanderbosch?
I wanted to ask Jeremy about residents who are in the district who have called in about the rerouting of the 20th Street. The sort of change in the traffic pattern, and whether you think I'm just curious what residents have said and whether you think that applies to a potential request here.
What capital request are you?
Well, I'm just wondering, like, would the truck study, for example, fall under this capital request?
A study would fall under expense budget.
Got it. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to ask about is, and maybe this is expense budget, so help me clarify, but whether there might be a need to request better funding. And this might be expense, but wrap around, like homeless shelters that have wraparound services. I guess the services would go into
That would be
expense, right?
expense. If you're talking about the physical building itself, that would be capital. If you're talking about the programs that go on for the people that,
Right,
that are
Okay.
served, that would be expense.
okay, okay. All right, thanks. I'll see you again
problem.
during the expense part.
Sounds good. I have Julio.
Thank you. I think when we're looking over, some of these were partially funded, so I just want to make sure we're thinking about moving some off the list. So I just wanted to name if folks were okay with taking off 18, 25, and 30.
I'll be happy to read them. So 18, excuse me, is study water and sewer problems. I actually have more information on this. DEP has agreed that there is a sewer problem on Kermit Place, and they are moving towards, they have not funded it yet. I don't have a date for it to start, but they are moving towards replacing those pipes in Kermit Place. I'm sorry, you said 1825. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong list. Sorry.
It's reconstruct Rainbow Playground.
Yes, Rainbow Playground. So what I would suggest for Rainbow Playground, it's actually supposed to start this month. It hasn't started, but there is something called continuing support. We can move it to continuing support and save that space. So I have it on my list. Would continuing support work for you when we talk prioritization, Julio?
Sure thing.
And
then 25, the replace windows in Sunset Park Rec Center, which is
so
also
again, that's another one that could go to continuing support. We just had a meeting with them that the rec center is about to undergo construction. Hasn't started yet, but it's supposed to be this autumn. I think we could safely do that.
Mhm. And then 30 is the pothole repair in the district, which I do think is important, but I feel like is on an as needed basis, which I have a separate gripe with DOT because it changed the process by which people make complaints with pothole repair.
Understood. Okay, so I have, correct me if I'm wrong here, moving 18 to continuing support, 25 to continuing support, and remove 30.
Correct.
All right, we'll get to that, get to your suggestions once we discuss prioritization. Last call for board members with new and old items. I have 3 items to request as well that came from various agencies. I will open it up to the public now, though, for new items or removing old items. Gabino, would you like to bring up your item, or did Jerry Chan cover it?
Yes, thank you for giving me the minutes to explain. Jerry Chan did touch on the items and proposals that I would be asking for research in our area. I would also say that it is a liability for us because we are the ones that are on the front lines for our community to protect them and secure all the projects that are proposed previously and the ones that are heading on to the future. Alongside any elected officials, we want to make sure we partner up with our district leaders. And I speak this from experience and the perspective from a resident here living in Sunset Park. We have been living in an area where crime has risen. We cannot deny that. So if anything, we could bring in some resources for our local precincts And I do serve on several committees that would interact or connect with what is going on now with capital and budget. Maybe I cannot make a difference here by saying what I have to say, because we need to push agencies to do this, and I hope we could work together with everyone here to make sure we have more cameras, as previous speaker said, Jimmy, or I forgot his name. Was it Jimmy? But either way, I did listen to that because it is a high priority for us, because the NYPD needs our assistance by any chance. Thank you for listening to me. And if anything, we need to act now. Put this in the capital for us to ensure the safety of our programs and projects moving forward. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Gabino. So last call on adding or removing items. Okay, so we had a couple of requests. The Brooklyn Public Library would like funding for the Windsor Terrace Library for making their bathrooms ADA compliant, an interior renovation, and an initial outfitting for the new equipment and furniture in the library. That could all be one item under library rehabilitation. The Parks Department also sent me their priorities, which look remarkably like our priorities, which is Demick Playground, Gonzalo Placencia Playground, Martin Luther Playground, and John Allen Payne Playground. So they're seeking help in getting funding for, as it says, all of them elected officials, to find money through the elected officials. So they'd like our help with that. And part of that is us prioritizing their playgrounds. And then finally, in discussion with numerous district managers, we've discovered that the city, not surprisingly, does not have enough impound space or tow equipment for large vehicles. So when we complain about trucks parked for days on end or weeks on end, or RVs under the highway that never get towed and are there for years, it's because the city has no place to put them and few appropriate tow trucks in order to be able to move them. In the expense budget items, I'm going to bring this item up again in a similar fashion. One of the things we also discovered is for the 9 precincts that make up Brooklyn South, there is one tow contractor for 9 precincts who has their one lot. So that's the reason why vehicles are rarely towed by the NYPD, is they have no place to put them. But I'll get to that later. So we have it's tow impound space is the request here, and tow equipment for Brooklyn, and also the Windsor Terrace Library. So we're going to move now to prioritization. If you include those 2 things, and they came from me, so I'm not suggesting you do, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 requests for new items, and 1, 2, 3, 4 requests for removing or moving to continuing support. So I could read these again. You can make your suggestions on prioritization. It's not just these items, but last year's items. Do you want to keep them in the same spot? Do you want to move them up? Do you want to move them down? Let's see a show of hands. I have John Body.
Jeremy, Mike, I have a question. The items that came from the Parks Department, does each one of those playgrounds need its own number on our list? You're muted.
So they're all already on our list and they all have their own separate priority number,
All of those parks are on our list?
every last one.
Oh, okay, all right. Thanks.
No problem.
Okay.
I have John Johnston next.
I would also like to add Greenwood Playground to somewhere on our list. My children and other children are getting, injured and also getting pinched in the swings in the playground. And Greenwood Playground needs some type of improvement. I know it's not going to happen, but at least put it at least on there.
So John, do you mean the children's play equipment?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I will put that on the list for discussion. John, since we're talking prioritization, where would you put it on the list?
I'll take, right now, I will take anywhere. Of course, I would like it number one, but I'll take 10, 8, 9, or 10. So I'm willing to compromise, but Windsor Terrace playgrounds need some improvement as well.
Thank you, John. That'll be up for discussion. You'd like 8, 9, 10. I have Jerry Chan next.
Hey, I think we should reprioritize everything, right? What my suggestion is, anything is related to quality of life and public safety should be on top. And I mean, actually, public safety should be on top, and then quality of life. But that's my suggestion. That's all.
Jeremy, you're muted. Did you say something?
Thank you. I keep doing that. So, Jerry, do you have a specific suggestion of moving something up or down, or is that just a general suggestion?
Just general suggestion. I can't. I'm not looking at the list right now. I'm driving, so I mean, I mentioned anything that deal with public safety, cameras, lighting. I think those should be moving on the top of the list. And anything that is part related or whatever, right? We just need to reprioritize it.
Thank you. I have Sam Sierra next.
Hi, good evening. I wanted to ask, can we possibly move number 9 and switch with 7, making 7, 9 and 9, 7, just switching places?
So those items, number 7 is number 7.
Requests or upgrade subway stations or other transit.
So shelters for the B63. And number 9 is lights beneath the Gowanus Expressway. So you'd like to switch 7 and 9?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have John Johnston.
No, I forgot to put my hand down. Thank you, though.
I have Cindy Vanden Bosch.
Yeah, so I would like to add the BPL, the request for the BPL in Windsor Terrace for the ADA compliance and the equipment and furniture that they're looking for. And if it's possible for us to slot that in somewhere in the top 20. I was thinking maybe after the after number 15, which is about accessibility. There are 2 that are about accessibility, 14, 15. So I thought maybe if we slotted in at 16, we'd draw more. That's one strategy we've used in the past, is sort of clustering requests that are somehow related to draw attention to them. So I just like to propose that, but I'm not sure what we could remove, but I do think that's an important priority. It's an important sort of public.
Okay.
It's
So-
important for people that live here. So yeah.
Thank you, Cindy.
Mhm.
Last call on prioritization. Members of the public, if you'd like to speak about moving
Sorry,
things up.
I have a question, Jeremy. Number 11, it says it's already included in the 10-year plan. Does that mean that it's actually already slotted for funding?
They're not gonna
No,
do
it's
it.
been included every year since 2014.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
Every year I give a tour to somebody from DCAS and then I never hear from them again.
Okay.
Okay, so hearing none, Christina, I have a process question for you. Would you like to settle these items in the public hearing, or would you like to discuss them further through discussion, or would you like to discuss them in the committee
Um,
and make the prioritization in the committee?
well, do people want to discuss it now, or do you want to think about it more and discuss it later?
Well, we just discussed it by raising hands. I think committees lend more to discussion rather than testimony.
Sure, we can prioritize now then.
Okay. So this will be interesting because I don't know how we're going to vote. So let me read I have Jerry Chan's hand up. Jerry?
Yeah, before we could do it, before we, I mean, Madam Chair, I just want to put a suggestion out there. Before we do this, right, should we kind of, again, right, I don't know how we're gonna do this. I don't have the list in front of me and unless I pull aside and do it, and how we gonna vote for this? That's my question. Same question that you have, Jeremy.
So the vote will be in the committee immediately following this public hearing. Right now, people get to say whether or not they want to move an item up or down, where it should fall within our matrix, and whether we should agree or not agree with moving items around as was previously discussed, or adding new items. So I'm going to read these off one at a time. And folks can share their opinion, whether or not they would like it to be in there and where it would be. Some of you have already shared those opinions. I have Cynthia Gonzalez's hand up.
I only have a question, Jeremy, and it has to do with the situation under the Gowanus with the abandoned vehicles there, especially the RVs that are there.
Right.
If those particular vehicles do not even have license plates on them, can't they just be, taken out and scrapped? I mean, I could see if somebody's license plate was on there, but recently when I went by there, I noticed that those vehicles, they've been there for years, they're not attended to, they're abandoned. So, I mean, if I abandoned my vehicle without I took my license plate off and just abandoned my vehicle, like, where would the police department bring that? I mean, they don't have to storage an abandoned vehicle. They bring that to like a junkyard or something. Isn't that what they do?
That's what they should do, but particularly with the large vehicles, they do not have the space to store them anywhere. So
Yeah, but we're not talking about storing the vehicle. We're talking about scrapping it and just getting rid of it.
I don't know the legal aspects of that. I don't know if they have to advertise it or try to find an owner. What we're simply, and that's beyond us. What I'm simply stating is the city doesn't have a place to move them to. So if the city had a place to move them to, perhaps they'd be out of that location.
No, but what I'm saying is that, sending it to like a scrap yard or something, because if there's no license plate, they've been there for years, they're abandoned, like, what does that mean? That means that if I left my vehicle without my plates and I just left it on the street, like for years, it would sit there in perpetuity because, they can't move it, they can't scrap it, they can't send it to a junkyard. This is something that needs to be looked into because it's, this is not a vehicle that we have to move it to somewhere until the owner comes and takes possession. There's no owner, there's no license plate, it's abandoned. This is what I'm talking about.
I appreciate that. I think you were talking policy as opposed to the capital and expense budget. We are meeting in November, hopefully with the deputy inspector of the precinct through Cynthia Felix's committee, Public Safety. And I believe Katie Walsh's committee, Transportation, is involved in that too. I believe that would be a good time to bring up the policy part of that issue. But tonight is about the capital and expense budget.
Thank you, Jeremy.
You're welcome. So there are several items here. I'm going to discuss the items that have been mentioned for removal first. And we could discuss that. And then we'll find out how many spaces we have to add. So then we can prioritize new items. So Joan Body had mentioned removing item 19, which is the bathroom facility on the Brooklyn Army Terminal Pier. Would anybody like to discuss that?
I'd like to keep that on.
Anybody else want to weigh in? We have one person saying they'd like to remove, one person. Thank you. A couple of hands went up. I have John DeLuca. John DeLuca.
I'd like to keep it.
Thank you, John. I have Jerry Chan.
I propose to remove it.
So we have two folks saying remove it and two folks saying keep it. Anybody else?
What was Joan's reasoning for removing it?
My reason or who the other person's reason?
The initial Joan Body's
Okay.
reason.
You're muted, Joan.
Sorry, if we keep it, which now 3 out of, that's fine, but do we have room for all of the items that we have requested? That's another issue. We only have room for 40. Am I right, Jeremy?
We only have room for 40, but I have some suggestions if necessary on how we can do certain things to get to 40.
All right, but, okay.
Jerry Chan, if you'd like to explain your reasoning. Jerry Chan?
Yes, you mean me tell you the reason why?
Yes.
Oh, because listen to what you say about what they need to do to bring a pipe out there, right? I mean, I do use that pier once in a while. I mean, sometimes wish it is the bathroom, but in order for them to bring a piping to that pier, it probably costs a lot, and it probably will be like 5 to 6 years before they actually build the project, right? Start the project, and but we got other priorities that we need to get through right now in the community. That's more important than building a bathroom, which they have something right now at porta potties that people could use. That's why I vote to remove it.
Thank you, Jerry. A reminder, there's no budget attached to any of these items, no matter how we prioritize it. And sometimes these items do remain on for years. Most famously, we had a high school on our list for 40 years before it finally got funded. I would suggest, just because you think something's not going to be funded for a few years, you may still want to keep it on, whether it's this item or something else. I have Julio next.
Jeremy, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say just that. And I'd also argue porta potties isn't adequate or appropriate. Show me another neighborhood in either Park Slope or in Battery Park that has porta potties in a public park, and you'd have a community in outrage, right? And that is not appropriate, nor should we expect that to be appropriate for this neighborhood. We deserve a lot better, especially for Bush Terminal Park when we have been shafted year after year. Even if it's gonna cost $50 million, and I just made up that number, it should stay on, I think it should stay on this list.
We can always
John-
move it in terms of like just priority. I mean, there's always that, but that'll come later.
I have John DeLuper next.
All right, so just adding one more thing for in terms of if we were considering it from the funding perspective that Jerry mentioned, this on the waterfront bathroom at Army Terminal, even if it is expensive, you know, EDC, correct me if I'm wrong, tends to have money periodically, and they also, you know, I think they just finished a big sewer project on 2nd Avenue anyway, or I don't know if it was them or specifically, but we can build sewers in this town. So I hope that that they can, that's another reason I would hope that this could be considered. So thank you.
I have Jerry Chan next.
But believe me, right? If the city or a private company want to put a bathroom out there, they could do it, because we already have a ferry over there already. If you look at all the ferry terminals that they have in Manhattan, both east and west, right? They all have a bathroom in there. The question is, does the city want to build this? But anyway, I'll go with the folks that just want to put it in there. If the city want to build it, they want to build it. But I don't know if they really want to develop the area. But that's my 2 cents.
Christina, would you like me to call the board members to see if they want to keep this or remove it?
Yes.
Okay, so board members, this is going to be a vote. I'm going to call your name. I'm going to call it from the screen, and I am only going to tally. I'm not taking your name for this one. So this is about removing number 19, which is the bathroom on the pier, Brooklyn Army Terminal Pier. So we will start with Victor Swinton. Would you like to remove this item or keep this item?
You can keep it.
Keep it. I have Joan Body.
No. Don't
No is
keep it.
removed.
No, don't keep it.
Don't keep it. Remove the item. Beverly Kleinman.
Keep it.
Keep it. Cindy Vandenbosch.
Present.
Cindy votes present. Sam Sierra.
I'd like to see it stay. At least we have something.
Thank you. John DeLuper.
Keep it.
Thank you. Katie Walsh.
Keep it.
Thank you. Jerry Chan.
We move it.
Thank you. John Johnston.
Keep it.
Thank you. Cynthia Gonzalez.
Take it off.
Thank you. Sandra Alfonso. Sandra Alfonso.
Keep it.
Keep it. The vote is 7 to keep, 4 to remove, 1 voting present. The item remains, so it stays on the list. The next item. Julio, I'm going to need your assistance because I can't call for this. To move item number 18, which is Rainbow Playground, moving into continuing support. Julio, would you ask for unanimous consent on that?
Oh, may I ask for unanimous consent to move reconstructing Rainbow Playground to continuing support?
Yes.
If there is no objection. Seeing or hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to do the same with item number 25. which is,
replacing all windows in the Sunset Park Recreation Center. Moving that item to continuing support. If there is no objection to moving this to continuing support. Seeing or hearing none, it is so moved.
and then Julio, you would also ask to remove item 30. And that one is increased funds for pothole repair. I'm not sure if there's continuing support or if there's unanimous agreement on that, or if folks want to discuss that one. Would anybody like to discuss removing item number 30, which is additional funding for pothole repair? Seeing no hands, Julio, do you want to ask for that one again?
Sure. If there are no objections to removing item 30, increasing funds for pothole repair. Seeing and hearing no objections, it is so removed.
Okay, so we have removed 1, 2, 3 items from our list, which means we could add 3 items. There may also be additional ways. I think I have some ideas where we might be able to remove certain items, or I don't think we could blend 2 items. But so the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 additional items have been suggested. One was to rehabilitate the Sunset Park walkways. One was to install DOT cameras. Number 2 is to install DOT cameras throughout the district. Number 3 is to install NYPD cameras throughout the district. Number 4 was the children's play equipment at Greenwood Playground. And then there's the Windsor Terrace Library request. And I'm not sure if anybody was interested in the additional impound space request. So are there any discussions on these items, whether or not they should be added? I see Joan Body first.
Jeremy, it's really a question. Playground equipment. Would we be able to put that in the expense budget, being that, no, not at all?
It is always capital.
Okay. Because my thinking was, if it's not over a certain amount of money, then maybe we could put it in the expense, but if we can't, we can, okay. Not a
So
problem.
capital budgets, I neglected to mention, capital items need to be over $50,000. I don't think there's a piece of play equipment in New York City under that. I have Victor Swinton next.
Yeah, Jeremy, the Greenwood Playground, I see it under number 22. Instead of putting a new item, could we just maybe think about moving that one up?
You're muted, Jeremy.
Yep. So John specifically mentioned the children's play equipment. We could add that to what's currently item 22, and then we could discuss moving that up as well. Does that sound reasonable? Victor, you are the chair of the Parks Committee.
Yes, that sounds reasonable.
So children's play equipment.
And if that's okay with John also.
No, I'll take what I can get, just some attention to it. I'm not gonna be, all right?
So that's actually one less item, because we're just adding to an existing item already. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we have space for 3. So any additional discussion on that? Joan, is your hand still up or is it up again?
I have I have a question. The cameras that people are talking about, functionally, DOT and NYPD, functionally it's the same, but NYPD can lead to being used by NYPD, whereas with DOT, they have more jurisdiction within their area, and then NYPD would need to go through them. How is that? What's the main difference?
So one would be a traffic camera and one would be, I guess, in high crime areas or specific areas to look for criminal activity.
Okay.
I have Julio next.
And now I have a piggyback question off of Christina. I remember New York State granted the city a little more leeway in speed cameras. I'm not going to expect you to have the answer to this question, but you may surprise me, Jeremy. Do you know if the New York City hit the cap for the number of cameras that we can have in the city, or is that something that, like, can we say we want to add more cameras in larger zones in our district, for example?
So that would be a policy question for the state. I believe the city is currently at its cap, although I know they have been discussing, I don't think they voted on this term, adding to the cap. What they did this term was they made those cameras 24 hours a day now, rather than whatever they were, 12 or 18.
Okay. That was number one question. And number two, I would like to add Joan's suggestion of the Sunset Park pavements and walkways and the rehabilitation of the Windsor Terrace library.
So do you have a suggestion where to put the Sunset Park libraries? Don't be fresh. Walkways.
I don't have a suggestion for the Sunset Park, but maybe we
Perhaps
can.
Joan does, since it was her item.
I was just saying maybe put it in where we took out one of the items, so maybe 25. And the Windsor Terrace, I would like to see that a little bit higher, so maybe 18, just like Cindy's suggestion, clump that up with something in where there are other accessibility items.
Okay, so there's a proposal on the floor to make the Windsor Terrace Library number 18 and the Sunset Park walkways number 25. So I am going to invite you to unmute yourself, since folks already have their hands up for other reasons. So if anybody would like to discuss that, please unmute yourself.
Hey, so let's go back to the camera thing. The camera that you're talking about is for the school zones. So the one that's coming from the state doesn't really cover areas like what I was thinking about cameras near the train station and anywhere that is near a very dark area. So just want to put that out there.
Thank you, Jerry. Right now, though, we're discussing the Windsor Terrace Library and the Sunset Park walkways. The proposal was to make those items number 18 and 25. Would anybody like to discuss that?
I'd really like the Sunset Park walkways to be moved up a bit. They really, really are in bad shape. They're very dangerous. You have children in the park all day. And if it's possible to move it up.
Where would you move it to,
Because
Joe?
we know that the first 10 priorities they look at the most.
Well, that really depends on the agency. The problem with Parks Department is they don't have a capital budget. So whatever we put there, they can't fund. So wherever we put it, they're going to say, speak to your elected official.
Yeah, this we know, and this is done all the time. And unfortunately, I really don't understand why such a big agency as the Parks Department that have so many parks, so many areas to clean and so on and so forth, and they don't have a budget. But
Answer that one.
We can
Well,
move
what-
it, we can change it to 19. We could switch them if people are okay with that.
So Joan, would number 19 be okay for you?
that's better. Okay.
Okay.
I propose that we should vote in the thing that the 6th item that people suggested first before we move anything up and down.
That's a process question I can't answer.
I'm not sure I understood your question. What was your question?
I think Jerry is suggesting that we vote on a package of items we're going to add before we decide where to put them.
Yes,
Oh,
thank you.
I think that's really, that's opening up a can of worms. It might be actually easier to do it one by one.
But we are opening a can of worm right now. We're moving stuff without deciding what need to come in first.
Right, but there are only 5 items, you know, and so when we have a few slots, we can just do it one by one.
We've done this many times. When it comes time for the items that you would like to propose a specific number for, you will have the opportunity to do that. And it exists within what we did last year. So if you say, well, I think this should be number 4, and people agree, it becomes number 4 and everything else moves down 1.
Okay, if you have something that worked before, I'll go with it.
I appreciate that. So the idea now is the Windsor Terrace Library will be number 18. And where are we? The Sunset Park Libraries walkways would be 19. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing no discussion, perhaps Julio would like to ask for continuing support?
Seeing or hearing no discussion on those 2 items. Great, they are so added and moved to 18 and 19.
So the next items we have are installing DOT cameras and installing NYPD cameras. Would anybody like to speak on those issues? And discuss where they should be prioritized. Cindy?
I would
Right.
like to ask a question about whether we have had a public safety meeting with regard to cameras. I don't know. I feel like this is something that I'm just wondering if this is something that's been discussed within committee.
The only time we've discussed cameras in the past year with regard to the MTA cameras in our subway stations after the terrorist attack in April.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Do we know what like the community feels about issues of you know, privacy and how they feel about this? I don't know what the community feels about that.
I've
So I
seen
can
no.
tell you, the community more concerned about the safety than privacy right now. So
Okay.
so I mean I understand privacy is very important, right? To everyone, but just like everything else, right? Putting a park somewhere, put it somewhere, right? Someone would disagree with something, right? If you don't want privacy out there, it is a big thing that yes, you might get people that don't agree. You might get people that agree. So
Okay. Just needed to ask.
Anybody else want to speak on that issue? I see 2 hands up. I'm not sure if it's on this issue. I have Julio.
Yeah, thanks. You know, we've mentioned this before that this document is like a statement of our values for the board. And putting something like cameras, specifically NYPD cameras, says a statement about this board. And while I recognize, you know, Jerry and some other folks have stated that it's a public safety issue, I'm personally a little uncomfortable about putting something like cameras on this without doing a little bit more due diligence. I recognize that there is a safety concern, particularly given in the last year, the history of what's happened in this community. But I think I have some serious concerns, privacy concerns, one. Two, that this is a very large immigrant community. We've had issues in the past with some ICE raids. I have some serious concerns with these cameras being used by federal agencies. I think this would warrant a much larger conversation before we put something like that on this document. And I would just caution us to think about that before we do something that's pretty significant.
Especially with everything, with all the technology issues going around, you know, with everybody finding out that this was used in a way that they didn't realize. I think there does need to be discussion. I agree.
So I have Katie Walsh next.
Yeah, Julio basically said it. ICE raids, how is it being used, and information. There's lots of ways that we should be having proactive discussions about public safety. Following the terrorist attack that was, the attack that happened at 36th Street, there was community discussion and a forum that this board held around talking about public safety. And I think that, the Public Safety Committee has been continuing to meet, but let's talk about all the ways that public safety can be addressed, and would second or third, I guess, at this point. How are we going to do that? And so especially around this question of cameras.
Can I jump in a little bit again? I finally got back to my office. So I understand everyone's concerned about privacies and stuff, right? I understand that they might be a federal agency, an ICE agency that may use the camera, the feed to spy on people. I could tell you right now, they already know who you are, the agencies and stuff. I mean, I could tell you in Sunset Park, there's about 5 ICE agents that live in the neighborhood. Okay, because I used to work for federal, I know them, right? So they already know your stuff. New York City, one thing good about New York City, the NYPD will not share those informations with federal, right? Unless they have to go to court for it. So the privacy and stuff about our immigrant community is actually pretty safe. I just want to add that. And also on top of that, I know previously Carlos Menchaca have put aside a whole bunch of money to install NYPD cameras in the community, which never happened. The budget was there, but no one really know what happened to those cameras.
I have John Johnston next.
On the camera issues, I mean, I'm a big supporter of public safety and police officers, but cameras only are ways to find out what happens after the crime. It doesn't deter the crime. And you look at most of the studies. I'm kind of neutral on the camera issue, but I honestly think we would be better off in expense budget asking for more police officers on the beat and foot to deter the crime and enforce the rules than putting cameras everywhere. But that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Any additional discussion on this? Then with the chair and the committee chair's indulgence, I would suggest we do a vote on each of these items, whether or not we should add it. And then if we are going to add it, we'll ask Jerry where he would prioritize it, what number, and then we could discuss that. Would that be all right, chairs? Okay, so we're going to do this one at a time. So the first one is to add DOT cameras. So we will ask you, do you want to add the item or not add the item? So
These
we-
are traffic cameras, right? These are the traffic cameras.
Traffic cameras, yes. Now DOT has other types of cameras, including noise cameras now,
Mhm.
but very similar to the traffic cameras. It's for traffic infractions. So this is only for the DOT cameras. We will get to the other item after this vote. I have Cindy Vandenbosch first.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if it's, if there's any specificity that we're giving to this. It's just asking for more cameras, or is it more cameras in areas where there have been like
You have to tell me
pedestrian?
that.
Because like in areas where there's been pedestrian, where there's been like higher incidences of accidents.
What you're saying is you'd like to edit that to be add traffic cameras in areas of high accident rate and pedestrian and bicyclist injury.
Yeah, I mean, I just think some specificity versus cameras
Okay.
everywhere.
Jerry, this was your item originally. Would you be okay with that, with specifying in areas that have had accidents and pedestrian and bicyclist injury?
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole purpose of the camera, right? It's not look at spying on people, right? It's
Okay.
about keeping us safe. Yes.
So this is too
And those
bad.
cameras do get monitored 24/7. Just to let you guys know.
Thank you. So again, this is for DOT cameras in the specific areas I just mentioned. So Cindy Vandenbosch.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask
Is that
Katie.
a yes vote or
Oh, we're now voting?
yes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, but ask your question.
I mean,
I
I
thought
just, we discussed the sort of police cameras, but I don't,
Just DOT right now. This is
okay,
just about the DOT cameras.
okay. I'd like to hear from Katie, like as to whether this has been discussed in committee as well, and whether the committee has taken a position, Transportation Committee.
And John is here too, which is great, who's all the vice chair. We just had our first meeting last week, was good. Lot to unpack from that. We haven't specifically talked about this issue. I can just for context say that DOT has told us that they are gonna do a Third Avenue traffic study. It was supposed to, they had said it was urgent to start it as soon as possible in the fall. And then they just updated us and said it would happen in New Year. So they have what they call the KNI index, which is the killed and injured index, just to kind of have that sobering reality. And they have information, some of the information from NYPD, but they don't have all of it. And so the short answer is no, we haven't discussed it. We just had our first meeting. I don't think Zach's on to know if it's come up. The big thing with all this stuff is just you see this whenever you see someone hit or someone who's killed. Sometimes these cars have been given multiple violations. They have multiple speed camera issues. They're still on the road. They're getting the tickets. They may or may not be paying them. But we still need that accountability. So I think it's worth sort of what we're talking about with the other ones of public safety. I think we should talk about it, and we have asked the police precinct to come, the 72nd to come to a future meeting.
So back in 2011, our chairperson at the time, Fred Exwerb, wanted us to be the first board to vote in favor of red light cameras. And so we voted in favor of red light cameras. So that is a precedent for our board. I don't know if we were the first board to do that. So we are on record for that. So this is to install DOT cameras in the specific areas I previously mentioned. Yes is to support adding that. No is to not support it. Cindy Vandenbosch.
Abstain. I feel like I need to come to a meeting to learn more about this. Sorry.
Victor Swinton. Victor?
Jeremy, let me just understand what you, these cameras will be in locations where there's fatalities and pedestrians getting hit and bikes and all that other stuff?
I can't
Specific-
guarantee any of that. I'm saying that's going to be our request.
That's gonna be our request, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm for that, yes.
Okay. Beverly Kleinman,
Yes.
Jerry Chan,
Yes.
Katie Walsh,
Yes.
Joan Body,
Yes.
Sam Sierra,
Yes.
John DeLuper,
Yes.
John Johnston, John Johnston, Sandra Alfonso,
Yes.
thank you. Cynthia Gonzalez, Cynthia Gonzalez, Christina Lem,
Yes.
thank you. Julio Pena,
Yes.
10 yeses, no nos, 1 abstention.
Can I change mine or no?
Well, we're not recording this, Cindy, but if you'd like to change it, feel free.
Yes, I would like to change it to yes.
Okay, so.
Thank
it's
you.
unanimous. Jerry, do you have an idea where you'd like to put the DOT priority cameras?
Somewhere in the top 10. Let me give you a number.
Please.
Number 1.
Okay, would anybody like to debate that?
I mean, I do think it's a high priority, but I do also think that our 10 top ones should stay at where they are.
8:30.
I agree with that.
I'm done.
Okay, do you have a specific number?
I mean, we can move it under, do we have other safety improvements or safety areas that we can clump it with? Perhaps with the after where we move the Windsor Terrace Library?
We could actually move it to number 11. Since that's been on here since 2014.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, so that would be number 11. Would anybody like to dispute that, debate that?
Looks like unanimous. Oh, wait, Cindy?
Yeah, do we want to put it by the street lights, the new street lights? So we clump those two together, which that is number 9. So we would put it in at number 10. So those two go together.
Discussion on that, debate.
Cindy, that's a great idea, which I didn't think of. They do need to draw power from the street light. Yes, I think I agree with you.
Okay, so number 10 it is, folks. All right. Next item, install NYPD cameras throughout the district. Any discussion on this before we move to a vote? Victor Swinton?
Jeremy, and I probably shouldn't really comment on this, but when it comes to cameras by the police department, they're pretty much going to put those cameras where the crime statistics take them. They're just not going to put it on a corner just to have it on the corner. So wherever their crime statistics are, where it's happening the most, that's probably where they're going to put a camera. And people's concern about cameras, most of the time when there's a crime, as the one that happened on 36th Street, they got camera footage from stores, from homes. So they're going to canvass locations to get video footage in the area of these crimes that occur. So I don't think it's just going to be placed on a corner anywhere. I think this is going to be guided by crime statistics. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. I have Joan Body next.
I just want to tell a quick story. I have 39 cameras on my condo's property. There was a van parked out right outside my door that was stolen. When the 72nd precinct came to me, which they have been here quite often, and they took a flash drive of the camera, the van was returned to the owner the next day. I am in full support of putting cameras wherever, all over. They are nothing but a help to the police department and to all of us. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I have Jerry's hand up.
Let me add to what Victor was saying about the cameras, right? Yeah, you're right, absolutely right, Victor. They will put cameras where most of the crime happen, right? Subway station, there's a stabbing here on A Avenue and 7th Avenue, the other stabbing on A Avenue. They will put it in those areas. The camera will not be pointing at people's house. Again, if they point camera to people's houses, it's against the law, period. Right? And those cameras, again, monitored 24/7 by the precinct, one PV, and also monitored by the Office of Emergency Management. The Office of Emergency Management, which is underneath the Brooklyn Bridge, they have access to every single cameras in the city, whether it's DOT, FDNY, and so on. So they have access to it too. So just let you guys know, in case folks on the call don't know.
Thank you. Any additional discussion on this item? Victor Swinton next.
Yeah. I just wanted to make myself clear. I don't know if I know those cameras are not pointed towards houses. I'm just saying some folks have cameras on the houses as their own personal security as well as stores. And the police utilize those cameras sometimes to get leads on cases. So it's not pointed at the house, it's pointed in streets, but some people have their own individual cameras that the police will go knock on the door and see if they would let them review those films.
I have Katie Walsh next.
Okay. I thought we were having this discussion a few minutes ago, in a generalized sense. And then to like break it down further, I guess when I was talking about it was the NYPD cameras, like some of the comments that were made, and especially when I was talking about seconding Julio's point and Christina's point around use cases. So I'll just make the same points again, that I think that this is something, this is quite a big issue, quite a big topic. I don't know if it was John Johnson or someone was talking just about like understanding, do cameras keep people safe, and understanding how they're used. What do we have? What does our community want? This is the community board. This should not be like what we as individuals think, and individually, and it's clear that there's like a lot of different perspectives here, and voices, and it's really our responsibility. So if this is a collection of our values that are being reflected by way of our budgets and priorities, given the diversity of perspectives, I don't know like what I'm proposing within the context of what we can and can't do, but I just think this is a bit of a given the challenges that we faced in the past in this district, it just warrants more focus, study, discussion. Okay, thank you.
I agree with that because it is such a big topic, and until I just feel like there needs to be more discussion with the community to find out how they feel about it. I'm not against it. I just think there should be more inclusion, and there should be, just real listening to the concerns people have.
I have Jerry Chan next.
So Christina, going back to about the community. the community been talking about it, and I'm sick and tired of hearing from them almost every single week about what was budgeted to by Carlos putting more cameras for their safety. This is coming from the Asian community on 7th, 8th, right? 6th, 7th, 8th Avenue. Okay, if you want to talk to the community, I'm happy for you to introduce you to them, right? And you could speak with them about their safety, right? About their safety, about their friend that stabbed, their friend got robbed, their friend got punched, that no cameras got caught, right? I'm happy to do that.
No,
right?
I understand that, but the community is larger than just the Asian community.
But I understand that. I understand that, right? If you want me to talk about the other community, with the Red Hill community, okay, I could do that too, right? But we can't. I'm not coming out and say, "Oh, I want camera," and I can start everywhere. Listen, I could afford camera to put in every single store right now and give them free internet. I have no problem doing that. Okay. Matter of fact, I'm building a space down there that the camera get feed into these downstairs, which I donate to a community so they can monitor what's going on. I have no problem with that. But the problem is my camera doesn't get feed to the NYPD or some type of law enforcement agency that they can monitor in case there's a crime. Victor, I totally agree with you. When doing the whole incident in 36th Street, the resident provided a lot of information to NYPD by the cameras, right? You know why they did that? Because NYPD did not have enough cameras to capture a lot of stuff, right? We're going back to talk about privacy and stuff, right? If you talk about privacy, right, every camera that is pointing out the street, whether it's resident, business and stuff, they already violated, privacy. Do you know that? Because they have to put a camera up saying that you're being recorded. None of them do that. So if this committee is so worried about privacy, what the community think, I could bring you guys into my community, which is Sunset Park. This is where my office. This is where I focus most on, and let you talk to them. Matter of fact, open invitations, right? Next meeting, you could have it in my community center. You really want to hear the community. That's all.
I have Julio next.
I hear you, Jerry. I think, but what I also heard is that there are larger issues that I don't think putting cameras on a capital expense budget or priority request would necessarily solve. I think that is it does warrant a much larger discussion. And judging from the conversation that we've been having tonight, it would be a very divided vote or tally. I'm also worried what that would do at the larger board. If it were to make it onto the capital expense and priority request, the larger conversation at the full board. It is something
without discussion.
Yeah, exactly. Without a much larger discussion, without a public safety committee meeting, without larger discussions with community residents. It's just something that was thrown on there. I think particularly a controversial one that it's taken up well over 45 minutes of conversation here this evening, warrants a much larger conversation that I don't think the 14 people is capable and should be making this evening. Sorry, Christina, I'm gonna step on some toes, but if folks are okay, I like to ask for unanimous consent that we table this item and request specifically that the Public Safety Committee address this issue in a meeting, specifically NYPD cameras.
I was actually going to suggest that. So
because I do think that this conversation needs to be addressed, but I don't think this is something that we can solve tonight.
I actually agree with that. That's just why when I was telling before, why are we voting for this, right? That we should have a discussion first, right? But you guys told me that this is how you guys done it before, and this is how we do it. So
Okay,
Maybe there
Uh,
was just misunderstanding.
no,
I
no
think-
worries, yeah. And it's a new process for some folks. But seeing and hearing no, I'm already forgetting my words, but seeing and hearing no
Objections.
Objection, thank you, Cindy. We're gonna refer this to the Public Safety Committee.
so what does this mean? That we go revisit the budget after the public safety hearing? I mean, meeting, sorry.
It could be requested outside of this. We're voting on this next week.
So between now to next week, we'd have to have a meeting and people talk about it, and then we put it on agenda.
Set up a meeting prior to our board meeting. All of our meetings require at least 6 days by our bylaws.
So that's my question, right? So we table this, then what's that mean? That means we're not gonna talk about this until next year, because if we continue with this, prioritize the budgets and stuff, right? That means we can't put anything in until next year.
So this means that this is not going to be going in this year's capital priority and request list. And we're gonna be asking the Public Safety Committee to have a discussion. And then whether that is sending a letter to the council member, whether that's sending a letter to Borough, whatever that the action item is, that there'll be some kind of action. But as of now, I don't think that this should be in the capital expense and priority list.
So may I ask the folks on the call, right? What are the main concern besides safety? Not public safety. Besides privacy and stuff.
So we've listed them earlier. It was concerns with privacy, concerns with ICE enforcement, concerns with what are these being used for, and 15 people making this decision and having this discussion without any kind of public conversation. And there's a little uncomfortability with that, particularly with such a very important topic. And seeing as this document is our statement of values and what we think is a priority in our neighborhood. For many of these items, there have been several committee meetings. And to my knowledge, we have not had multiple or committee meetings on NYPD cameras.
Yeah, okay, so let me talk to the chair of public safety. Let's see, when can we schedule a call and do this? All right.
Perhaps I could clarify as well. Jerry, this is a request. What we're doing tonight is a list of requests that we want to see added to the budget. As you probably heard, most of these are not added to the budget. During the year, we can make requests for anything as well. We don't have the ability to give anything a budget. We're just a community board. But we could ask the various agencies to prioritize at any time of year. This is just one specific document where we do this once a year.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm actually looking at the list, and some of the stuff is like, I'm laughing at it, that being open such a long time, and the answer you guys got back from the agencies and stuff.
Well, the agencies aren't here, so they give it to us in writing. I have a feeling we're going to want to get the agencies in person.
No, I mean, it's fine, right? This is my first meeting. You still got 2 years with me for me to piss everyone off, but it's okay. I'll let this one go. And we'll figure out on the public safety side. How's that?
I'm agnostic. So we're 2 hours in. We still have the expense budget to go, but there are two additional things that were suggested. John Johnston had mentioned moving Greenwood Playground up to number 8, 9, or 10. If John would like to speak about that, or someone else.
No, we can do that. Can't. And
Joe,
move
would you
everything,
have a suggestion as to which?
move everything down one.
So you would want to move it to 8, 9, or 10?
All right, well, make that priority for the children.
Which number would you like to move it to?
8,
8.
yes.
Anybody else want to discuss that? Hearing nobody, okay, so Greenwood Playground will move up to 8. And
I
then
think Victor wants to, Victor, did you want to say something?
Victor,
No,
you
I
mean-
was gonna suggest, 8 also due to the safety factor with the children. So I'm
Yes.
good.
Then somebody, I can't recall who, mentioned flipping item 7, which is the bus shelters for the B63 route, with item 9, which is the lights beneath the Gowanus Expressway. Move the lighting up to number 7.
That was Sam Sierra.
That was that. Anybody want to dispute Sam's suggestion?
No issue with me.
Let's move it on.
All right, so we will do.
Can we add to the street light, not just 36th
Let's
Street?
move it on.
So if you have a different street, that would be a different item.
Okay.
Well,
Fine.
it's not 36, it's Third Avenue.
Oh.
That's the shorter streetlights.
Okay.
Okay, so Christina, you have a matrix now for the next meeting after this. That's true too. We have another meeting after this. But we have the expense budget next. Shall I get into that?
Sure.
You. This is the long-winded reading part again. And some of these are lengthy discussions. Priority 1, hire additional crossing guards, increase school crossing guard personnel in CD7 and increase hours to reflect after-school programs. Our population has grown by 50% in 2 decades, and we have many more schools, charters, and pre-K programs, but our crossing guard personnel has remained at 40 throughout. Several children have died at unguarded crossings in the past few years in this community, with at least 4 deaths. The allocation formula has never been explained. Well, since last year, we've gotten the allocation formula explained. Our bigger problem is about 25% of our positions are unfilled. We have about, I think it's 54 we're at now. And I think we are only at 42 crossing guards. So we need people to apply for these positions as well. Priority 2, may I please just ask that everybody mute themselves? Priority 2, provide, expand, or enhance primary prevention services to strengthen families. Increase daycare slots in CD7. The community's need has increased significantly, but we have lost seats due to competition for space. Head Start had to move to for a new public school and lost half its slots in the process. The popular Bad Kids contract was not renewed and the space was used for pre-K. This request has already been funded. That's because the city has changed how it does daycare slots. Priority 3, other NYPD program requests. Increase and sustain truck enforcement. CD7 has an inordinate number of trucks due to large industrial area and poor highway access. Trucks traveling off route in a dangerous manner, such as speeding, have been an increasing concern for residents. The agency recommends funding this budget request, but at the time, the availability of funds is uncertain. OMB supports the agency's position. Priority 4, expand bus service frequency or hours of operation. Increase service on the B63 bus and ensure much more frequent service, particularly during school rush hours. The B63 serves several schools inside and outside the district, and service levels have not been frequent enough to handle the volume of children. We have received numerous complaints about children being late due to overcrowded buses bypassing stops. Contact the MTA. Priority 5, fully fund all programs for all children who are eligible for specialized and related programs, including but not limited to students with special needs and multilingual learners in the district. More information is needed from the community board before making a funding decision. The community board should contact the agency. Priority 6, increase funding for preventive protective services for children. ACS offers services for youth and families. Please contact the agency. Priority 7, assign more non-teaching staff to provide social, health, and other services. Allocate funds for additional training of school safety officers for all schools, especially serving schools with District 75. Safety officers should not be from the NYPD. This is a DOE request. This request has already been funded. Priority 8, provide vocational training, day habilitation, and placement services for adults with disabilities. Approval of this request depends on sufficient federal or state funds. Priority 9, increase funding for corner basket pickup. Corner baskets in CD7 are overflowing, and BK7 has responded in part by reducing, that's the BK7, sanitation BK7, has responded in part by reducing the number of baskets. CB7 believes more frequent pickups can alleviate the problem. Due to fiscal constraints, the availability of funds is uncertain. Priority 10, increase parks personnel budget for additional maintenance workers and recreation center workers. Aside from funding, OMB would need to allow for an increase in the agency's headcount in order to hire more full-time staff. They're not allowing more headcount. Priority 11, restore full funding for the B37 bus to 3rd Avenue in CD7 with 24-hour service. Contact the MTA. Priority 12, expand bus service frequency or hours of operation, provide additional buses to increase frequency of B70 bus. Contact the MTA. Priority 13, increase funding for adult ESOL, adult literacy, and adult education programs in CD7. HRA provides employment and workforce development services, including basic education, training, work experience, job search, placement, and retention services. HRA works to not only keep people on the job, off the HRA caseload, and help them move out. I don't see how that's an answer. Priority 14, increase programmatic funding for youth-oriented diversion programs concerning drugs, crime, alcohol, and gangs in CD7. Contact ACS. Priority 15, increase funding for sewer and catch basin maintenance in CD7. The agency will accommodate this request within existing resources, but the community board should contact the agency for additional information. Priority 16, allocate funding for after-school music and arts programs, comprehensive ASP, ELA, STEAM, sports, math, Compass, and Sonic programs to all schools in the district. Further study by the agency of this request is needed. Priority 17, provide comprehensive bicycle safety training for all who wish to receive such in CD7. Please contact the Borough Commissioner's Office for traffic calming device requests. Priority 18, study water and sewer problems in area bounded by Kermit Place, East 7th Street, and East 17th Street and Caton Avenue. Further investigation is required. As I mentioned before, they've done that investigation and have scheduled this. Priority 19, fund adult vocational and apprenticeship programs in CD7. Further study is needed by the agency. This one was small business services. Priority 20, increase funding for tree planting and pruning district-wide in order to expedite the schedule. The agency recommends funding this expense budget request in 2023, but at this time, availability of funds is uncertain and will be unavailable for 2 years because there's a scandal you've probably read about. Priority 21, restore community-based employment training programs for all schools district-wide. Further study is needed. Priority 22, restore 5-day-a-week pickup at all schools district-wide. Many schools do not have capacity for storing garbage multiple days. Most of our schools are overcrowded and have more garbage than capacity. This request has already been funded. Priority 23, allocate additional personnel for manual street sweeping in CD7 and or implementation of the Clean Curbs program for schools. Due to fiscal constraints, the availability of funds is uncertain. Priority 24, enhance educational and recreational programs. CB7 believes City senior centers are now in competition with for-profit facilities that have access to federal reimbursement. Programs at city facilities should be enhanced to compete. Further study by the agency of this request is needed. Priority 25, increase the number of permits to allow additional legal vending opportunities, increase enforcement against illegal vending activities, and provide training for those who wish to apply to become legal vendors. This request is not recommended for funding. Those are the 25 priorities we voted in favor of last year. Just as a reminder, the expense budget priorities each year we get to put on the list are 25 max, and there is no continuing support for the expense budget.
Jeremy, have been funded. Can we take them off?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The ones that have been funded, can we take them off now?
You notice some that have been funded?
I second that. I second that. Anything that being funded already.
There are 3 that sounds like they've been funded already.
So the prevention services, so that's daycare slots. So so we've been given all the daycare slots that have been allocated for this community. Are we saying that that's enough though?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Is that why we keep it on? Because there's a
Particularly,
continuing
yes.
need.
Other items, however, hang on. So assign more teaching staff to provide social health and other services. Anybody involved with the schools want to discuss that? If that was, they say it's been done. Do we have confirmation?
That needs to be, I mean, I can't find my words. That needs to stay on considering the budget cuts that DOE made this year.
What about the continuing support?
So continuing support doesn't exist for expense budget.
Okay.
And then there was a third one, I think.
What about 22?
22. That one we could remove. So I'll put that down as a suggestion. Any other discussion on any of these items?
Yeah, all the MTA buses and stuff, right? Like number 4, requesting additional service or a bus. But that, you know, that should be coming from the MTA budget and stuff, right?
Right.
So why do we keep it on?
Anybody?
I can't answer that.
So like the capital expense, the capital budget priorities.
Increasing bus service, Jerry's saying.
It's a statement of our priorities, and we keep it on to show that particularly the B63 is a much needed corridor. So it's a bus line that needs to be serviced and increased.
I understand that, right? But I'll let me say that if there's other priority they need to put on it, anything that we need to put on this top 25, the bus or service need to come out. I'm just making a statement.
So why don't we see how many we want to add?
Yeah. Let's go backwards.
We're already taking out one. Possibly. We're discussing taking out one. I have Cindy Vanderbosch. This is about discussion on the items that are on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Number 13, when you commented that the budget response seemed not to match the request.
That seemed to be them advertising.
Yes, so I actually think, and please, someone else correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I did a little bit of research myself, and it seems like this responsible agency for this particular request should be DYCD, because there are ESOL, adult literacy and adult education programs that are provided by DYCD. And so I wonder if it's just a mismatch. Like, it's not that we don't, because HRA, and this will get into the new, could be like homeless prevention services or helping prevent people from eviction, that sort of thing. Like
right.
that So I just wonder if it's a mismatch there. And if we could just update it to be
We could
DYCD
update it
instead.
to DYCD.
That's correct. DYCD does contract for those services.
Anybody else want to discuss the items that are on the list already?
I have one more,
Go ahead.
but it's more of like a question or this discussion, which is,
Go for it.
you know, I do want to keep the like number 8, which is vocational training, day hab and placement services, but that is not done by the Department of Small Business Services. And I think a lot of this is funded through the state for nonprofit organizations, if I'm not incorrect about that,
One
but we,
specifically says they are seeking funding from the state or federal government. So that potentially you could remove because it's not city budget.
we could, I just wonder, like, is that,
So
does
like
that,
the NTA items, you may want to keep it just as a statement that this is a priority for us.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, I guess the main thing for me is like, or just as that we've discussed, actually, not just for me, but in the Ability and Access Committee, is the need for workforce development services to include people with disabilities in a more integrated way, but
I think we have one of those items. Hang on.
Wait,
Hey, Cynthia, Cindy, so SBS is responsible for that, right? Because they have Workforce One all over the city that they use to train people, if you, for skills and stuff.
okay. Okay, that's helpful. All right, then let's leave it.
I mean, I was voting to remove that too, you know, but. Yeah, SBI, I could connect you if you want to actually talk to the person in charge of it.
So Jerry, you had your hand up next. I don't know if that's what you had wanted to say or if you have something else.
No, that's what I want to say.
Okay, anybody else with discussion on these expense budget items? Would
I actually have a
anybody?
question. I have a question, Jeremy.
Yeah.
So when people see this, like it goes to the city council members and they can consider any of these for their discretionary funding?
This goes to the Office of Management and Budget and DYCD. The council
Okay.
members could read this, the council members could ignore this. But it goes to our responsibilities to get it to OMB and DCP.
And can we give it to the city council members?
We can give it to anybody we want. This is published annually.
Like personally give it to them, you know, and say, let's
Absolutely.
prioritize this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we can talk about that. Great.
Yep. Anybody else to discuss these items? Would anybody like to discuss adding or removing items? I have 4 items that I wanted to bring up. Julio?
So I know one thing we've discussed a lot in the past year and perhaps longer at this board and with other external folks is what do we do with the library space after they relocate? And it should be on top of a lot of people's mind now that the library, their new space is about to be handed over to the library. And I'd like us to add in the expense budget, funding a new community center at 4201, modeled after the Cornerstone program.
So Julio, one that wouldn't be an expense budget, that would be a capital budget. But one thing I neglected to mention is our capital priorities can't have any expense budget implications. So we can't tell them to build a community center because there would be nobody to staff it. So what I would suggest to make this an expense budget item is we fund a study to determine the best community use for the space, to include public workshops and meetings.
So, but wouldn't it be, it's an expense if we're telling DYCD to fund a program like Cornerstone in that center. Like DYCD would grant a Cornerstone contract, which
I
is
see what you're
essentially,
saying. So you're not saying build a center, you're saying.
oh, no,
fund
no,
a
no,
program
no.
Within it.
Yes, so Cornerstone
Okay,
essentially,
So perhaps you
give
can
you-
word that for me?
yes, I was gonna, so, actually, I can put it in the chat. So DYCD, fund a new community center at
No,
42
no,
on
no,
Fourth
no, that
Avenue.
language isn't gonna work.
Okay,
So
so,
fund a new community program at, that would work.
yes, fund a new community program at, or community programming at 4201 Fourth Avenue, utilizing the space, the existing space,
And what was the
modeled after the Cornerstones program.
cornerstone?
And specifically Cornerstone, because essentially they give you the space and you're responsible for it. You're responsible for the maintenance, for the upkeep.
So modeled after the Cornerstone
Program.
program. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else with priorities, removing, adding? Or want to discuss that item? Cindy
Yeah.
Aguilar?
Oh, sorry, Cindy.
Please raise your hand, Jerry.
Oh, Jerry, but was that in response to the item that Julio added?
Great. I was too busy trying to find that raise hand button. What was the question?
Oh, if you wanted to respond to that item, because I'm gonna
No,
bring
no,
up
no.
something new. Oh, okay,
Bring something new. Bring us something new.
okay. All right, truck study, can we put a truck study in here?
So I have something on that in my list. I'll get to that in a minute. if
Okay,
you
that's
don't
on your wish list. Okay, good, good, good. Is there, and so then that also, I mean, to me, like the issue with 20th Street and with a lot of what's happening in the community has to do with the truck route. So I'm gonna let, is 20th Street gonna come into play in your comments, Jeremy?
No,
Okay. I guess we are gonna have a meet. I'm gonna let that go because I know we're gonna have a meeting
Right.
about that. Okay. And then the other thing was about, I didn't see it here and I'm sorry if I missed it, but services, ensuring that people in the district who are homeless have wraparound, have the funding and support they need. I'm sorry, I need to like articulate this better. I'm putting this,
I got
if
it.
there's, but we, this has been a real challenge, challenge in our community. We want to help people get on their feet, and so it seems like Sunset Park has been provided a lot of this support, and we need the services in order to support people who are experiencing homelessness.
so I think some folks would dispute that all of the shelters are in Sunset Park. So the way I wrote it is for funding for wraparound services for all shelter residents in CD7.
Okay, and does that include temporary shelters as well?
So I said all shelter residents.
Oh, thank you. Okay, great.
Not
Great.
about the shelter, it's about the residents.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Okay,
No problem. I have Jerry Chan next.
Yeah, my proposal is to move number 4, number 7, number 8, number 12, number 22,
Hang
and
on.
move
4, 7, 8, 12, 22.
22, and move 9, 15, 17 to higher priority.
Okay. 9, 15.
17.
Okay. We will get back to that. Other hands? Okay, I don't see any additional hands, so I have some other suggestions. One is something we've been discussing for a long time, and I've been discussing with my colleagues, which is the need for translation services for community boards. We have been, I've been speaking to members of the city council about trying to find funding. I've been speaking among district managers. Cindy Vandenbosch's Access and Ability Committee is meeting next week with Council Member Hanif's office to discuss legislation. But in truth, we need money for this, and we need a service available, a program available for community boards. So I have also suggested to all of my colleagues that they try to get their boards to add this to their expense budget. And I told them that I would give them, assuming my board goes for it, I would give them suggested language. So that's item number one. Item number two, which was another district manager's suggestion, was to make increasing community board budgets a higher priority. I'm not going to argue for that one, against that one. Number three kind of goes into what Cindy was asking about a truck route study. I was more specific, perhaps this should be less specific, but I was suggesting money for a 3rd Avenue corridor study. I know DOT has made vague promises about a study and when it's going to happen eventually, but this is to actually put money into it. And so they can't say, well, you know, we'd like to, but we have budgetary problems and there are other priorities. So I was suggesting money for a 3rd Avenue corridor study. And then finally, what I brought up earlier with additional, getting the NYPD to get additional towing contracts so we could get some of these derelict vehicles removed from the district. So we have suggestions for 4, 5, 6 new items and removing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. So why don't we talk about potentially removing items? So Jerry has suggested, well, actually, why don't we talk about adding items, because then we'll know how many we have to remove. So let's start with the idea of funding a new community program at 4201 4th Avenue, modeled after the Cornerstone program. Julio, by the way, what agency would that be?
That's Department of Youth and Community Development.
DYCD, okay. Would anybody like to discuss that? I see Cindy Vandenbosch's hand up.
This is nuanced, but program to me suggests like one individual program that might serve a small number of people. So can we change it to community programming, which is what I think Julio said.
Yeah, community programming. And for those that aren't familiar with Cornerstones, they do offer a wraparound, and it's after school evening center, and they service children, young adults, and adults as well as seniors. They service everyone.
Does that answer your question, Cindy?
Yes.
Anybody like to discuss this one?
So who fund them, by the way?
Department of Youth and Community Development.
Okay.
Julio, where would you suggest we put that?
Ideally, I would love that to be number one. Because
when we get to priorities. So the next one we have is ensure funding for wraparound services for all shelter residents in CD7. That was Steve Vandenbosch's suggestion. Anybody want to discuss that one?
So maybe because I don't understand what is wraparound. The only thing I wraparound, my definition might not be your definition. So anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but it would be the support services that people need in order to, transition into like a more sustainable type of housing, address mental health issues if people are struggling with that. access services that they might need in the city. And this is really important and was raised in meetings on the committee, the task force that we had dedicated to issues related to homelessness. And because there were, and correct me if I mischaracterize this in any way, Jeremy, but it's essentially that there were people that were not receiving the services that they needed.
So may I help?
Yeah,
So
please do.
What we have discussed is not all services are available locally to folks.
That's it. That's
They had
it.
to go out of the community and even out of the borough to obtain some of these services.
Right.
So the idea is they should all be available locally.
Right. They shouldn't have to travel to get them, because then in some cases, people don't get the services they need in order to kind of, in order to get the support they need.
Got it. It's like going to Cancun, everything's included. Got it.
Right.
Okay.
Homeless shelter.
I have a question about that wording. Before it used to be just comprehensive. What changed it to wraparound? What broadened it?
I think that's just the nomenclature now. New buzzword.
Okay.
Yeah, I think wraparound, working in nonprofit, wraparound is a more holistic word and includes the whole person, whereas comprehensive, it just didn't include the whole person. And wraparound is more appropriate.
Just a change in language. Okay.
Yeah.
Any additional discussion on that? Cindy, where would you put that when we discuss those items?
I'm just wondering if there's something we can put it with that's here.
I don't think we have any other DHS items.
Is that DHS or HRA? Because HRA provides a lot of these services.
It would be through DHS, who runs the shelters.
Okay.
But the DHS doesn't do contracting of development and mental health services. That's either HRA or DYCD.
Right.
So then this should be HRA then.
I was thinking it was HRA when I researched this before.
I know, like CFL, for example, or one of the nonprofits has an HRA contract, not DHS.
All right, so how high a priority would you like to make this, Cindy?
I'd like to put this this has been a major issue for our community for the last, has been, I would put it at,
We're going to discuss it. Just give me a number for the moment. We'll discuss.
Number 10.
Thank you. All right, we will get back to that. Translation services for community boards.
I think we should definitely have that high on the list. I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. And I know we've had this on our expense report prior, and then we took it off when we had that larger influx of budget from the city council, and then took it off. And now we don't have that anymore. So we should definitely have it on.
Jeremy, I have a question. Really,
Yeah.
I think it's a really quick question, but yeah, I'm such a big believer in discretionary funding. Community boards can get discretionary funding, can't they?
Yep.
But I know that it would be piecemeal then. So is the hope that if all the community boards align, that it would then become this regular programmatic funding, part of the regular programmatic funding?
I'm looking at this as a service because different boards have different needs when it comes to translation. So to give a specific number rewards some boards with additional funding they might not need, whereas some boards would still be scrambling who need to do a lot of translation. So I'm looking at this as a central service rather than a budget allocation to community boards.
Okay.
Jerry Chan.
So the Office of Immigrating Affairs, Moya or Mocha, I can't remember. They do offer a translation service and stuff. So during the whole pandemic, right? I use them a lot to do a lot of different translations and stuff. So have we
Yes.
looked into them and see
As
if
a
they could
matter of
provide?
fact, that's been part of our discussion with the council member. They do provide translation, and if we needed help speaking to a constituent, they would be helpful to us. What I can't get them to do is help translate a 3-hour meeting.
I did, but yeah, okay. I agree. We should move that pretty high on the list, like the top 5, because if we continue doing Zoom, we need people to come and just not listen to nonsense. Well, I'm not saying we're not nonsense, but gibberish to them, right, for 3 hours, so they don't understand.
Right. I have Cindy Vanderbosch next. Cindy, you're muted.
Sorry, it's getting late. Typically, this is a nuance, but I think it's important. Translation is typically used for written translation, whereas interpretation is typically verbal. So interpretation services, translation services would also be good, but we could say interpretation and translation services.
I'll put it as both. We
Okay.
generally don't have a problem with translation. We go through our not-for-profit community, but it's more interpretation. You're correct.
Okay, great. And then could we also include interpretation and translation into like languages other than English? And can we include American Sign Language in that?
Yes, that has led us to a problem when it comes to the Mayor's Office for Immigrant Affairs, because we're not sure where such language services should be housed, because American Sign Language would not necessarily be in that. So we're discussing that with City Council. But we're
Okay,
not
that's
saying where it
fine.
should be housed right now.
So which agency would this be addressed to, do you think?
I think they need to create a new one.
Okay, but within this context and this request.
Within this context, I am going to put it to the Mayor's Office.
Great, okay.
Julio, since you were the one who spoke up first on it, where would you put it? It's been mentioned, should be top 5. Where would you want to put it?
I would say number 3.
Okay. Community board budget increase. Anybody want to speak up on that one or no?
So what do you mean by? Oh, wait, I gotta raise my hand. Let me raise my hand first.
We got
What's
you.
fun?
Nobody else has their hand raised.
Yeah. So what do you mean by increased budget for the staff, for food that you gonna have for the meeting? I don't know. What does it mean?
Increasing the community board's budget, anything that we spend money on, including staff, including meetings, including perhaps translation services or interpretation services, if they give us a big increase. But whatever we decide to spend our money on.
I think that should be a top 10 on the list.
Anybody else? Jerry, you're the only one who's spoken on that. Where would you put it?
I'll put it right below number 4, right below the translation service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next item I have is money for Third Avenue study. Hearing nobody speak up on that. Anybody want?
So what is the Third Avenue study?
We've been asking for a safety study for Third Avenue for over 20 years. It's the most dangerous corridor in the community. DOT has been dragging their feet forever. This is a way for us to say, another way for us to say, this is our priority. We want you to fund a study rather than them dragging their feet.
Yeah, there's an increase of a lot of bars and clubs and restaurants and where over there now. So I think good idea.
So where would you put it then, Jerry?
Damn, I should never speak up again.
You're the only one speaking, so I'm asking you.
Let's put that, the number 15.
15?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get back to the priorities in a moment. And anybody want to speak up on additional towing contracts? Seeing none. We have five items that have been suggested as additions, which means we need to remove 5 items if we want to add all of these.
Is
Jerry.
the towing contract part of it? The
I'm
towing
sorry?
contract? The towing contract?
Nope,
towing
nobody spoke
contract.
up on that, so I didn't add that.
Okay.
So Jerry has suggested removing 5 items. They are, hang on. Number 4, which is, where are we? The increasing service on the B63. Number 7, which is the District 75 safety officers, which they said they have done already, and they have moved that to DOE. Number 8, which is vocational training, day rehabilitation, and placement services for adults with disabilities. Number 12, which is the B70 bus, increasing hours of operation or frequency. And number 22, which is
Garbage
pickup. It's already been done. So discussion on those items while I let my dogs in. Anybody want to champion any of those? Actually, Jerry, you're the one who mentioned them. If you want to discuss why you want to remove those items, I'll be right back.
Well, some of them have been funded already, right? So we could remove it and add new items to it. And some of them that we know we cannot do anything about it. I know that they show our support of having more bus services and stuff, but maybe we can move them to a lower level, not the top 10 list. But anyway, we vote as a group anyway, so it doesn't matter what I say.
So I think, Jerry, what you're saying is number 22 has been funded?
Yeah, right.
And I'm trying to think, what was the other one?
Where's my,
is it number 8? No. Number 7, I think you were saying.
Yeah.
So those 2 have already been funded. Any additional discussion on the potential of removing these or other items? Victor Swinton?
I would like to leave number 4 due to the fact that, especially during school hours, those buses do pack up and they do bypass some of the bus stops due to the fact they have no more room, understandable. But we got to be able to move our kids within the district back and forth to school. So that would be my reasoning to keep the expanded bus service, number 4 in place.
Thank you. I have Julio next.
I working in the school system, I feel pretty strongly about leaving number 7. I have a lot of concerns, particularly given the school year when the DOE budget was significantly cut. I don't have a lot of faith that this was funded. And I'm just concerned about taking this off, particularly when it relates to social emotional health for students with disabilities. And number 8, I would prefer that this stay on, even though it requires federal and state funding. Again, I think it is something that we are saying it deserves and should require funding or should get funding in our district. I think it should stay on.
Thank you. I have Sam Sierra next.
Hi. I wanted to speak with regard to number 4 and ask that it not be removed. I think it warrants a larger discussion. We're talking about the only bus that services our only shopping corridor. And I'm concerned that I don't want us to remove a constant ask or request for improvement to this service. And I think like the issue with the police cameras, I think this, before there's discussion of removal, I think that this should be brought down to the committee, perhaps, what is it, the Transportation Committee, for further discussion. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Cindy Vandenbosch?
Yeah, so I mean, I know I raised this sort of question about sort of the state versus city for the number 8, but also funding has just like, you know, at least what I've read, city funding for contracts to provide services for New Yorkers, especially with intellectual and developmental disabilities, has dropped by like more than half since 2001. Like it's in the last like couple of decades. And the unemployment rate has also gone from 7.4% in 2019 to 17% in 2021 for working age people with disabilities in New York City. So I want to keep it on because I think it's just because we can't think about which agency it should live in doesn't mean we shouldn't have it on there.
Thank you.
Can I withdraw removing that? It makes sense.
Moving number 8, you're saying?
Yep. But like, you know, I think I told some of you, but you looking at me, you don't know. I actually have I'm certified as have disabilities and stuff. I understand city, but I'm supporting, you know, training folks with disabilities and stuff.
Thank you. Any additional hands? Okay, so we have a suggestion to still have a suggestion to remove 4 of the 5 that Jerry originally. Item number 4, 2 people spoke in favor of. Would anybody else like to speak in favor of keeping or removing item number 4? Otherwise, we could vote on it. So it's keep or remove item 4. So we will move on that. So we will start with Cindy Vandenbosch.
Keep.
Keep. Victor Swinton.
Keep.
Jerry Chan. Jerry? Remove. Thank you. Sam Sierra?
Move.
Keep.
Keep. Thank you. Katie Walsh?
I'm sorry, I lost the lead. What is 4?
Item 4 is, which bus was that?
B63.
63.
Oh, keeping the B63, the route and preserving. Yes, keep it.
No.
Folks, we're voting now. Please, no cross conversation. John DeLuper. Please mute yourself, folks.
Keep.
Cynthia Gonzalez.
Keep.
Sandra Alfonso.
Keep.
Thank you. Item 4 will remain. So then we have item 7, which is school safety officers for district and training for District 75 students. This would be to keep, I'm sorry, I missed Christina Lem. This is still item 4.
Keep.
Keep, and Julio Pena.
Keep.
Forgot my chair people. So item 4 does remain. Then keep or remove item 7, which is the District 75 training for school safety officers specific to students with special needs. We will start with Cindy Vandenbosch.
Keep.
Victor Swinton.
Keep.
Thank you. Jerry Chan.
We move because it's funded already.
Sam Sierra.
Keep it on.
Katie Walsh,
Keep.
John DeLupa,
Remove.
Cynthia Gonzalez,
Keep.
Sandra Alfonso,
keep,
Christina Lem,
Oh, I just want to say something about the funding already, because Hulu explained before that keeping it on means that it continues to be funded. So that's the main thing. So keep.
Julio Pena.
Keep.
Item remains. Number 12 was. We got paper everywhere now. Number
Expand
12.
bus frequency on the B70.
I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were looking expand bus frequency on the B70.
Right, thank you, the B70. So item 12 would be to keep or remove that item, the B70. So we will start with Cindy Vandenbosch.
And so this, is there a chance that they'd reduce frequency if we didn't keep it? Yes, okay, keep.
If you, I couldn't tell you if there's sure there's a chance. I don't know if our board has any impact on that one way or the other. So I'm sorry, your vote was?
Keep.
Keep. Oh, this switched around. Okay, Victor Swinton,
keep,
Jerry Chan,
Remove.
Sam Sierra,
Keep.
Katie Walsh,
Keep.
John DeLupa,
Keep.
Cynthia Gonzalez,
Keep.
Sandra Alfonso,
keep,
Christina Lem,
Keep.
and Julio Pena.
Keep.
So that remains. And then finally, number 22, which, if anybody has it, I'd appreciate it.
It's provide more frequent garbage or recycling pickup for schools and
Yes, thank you.
schools
School
and
garbage pick.
institutions.
So that has been funded, as Jerry has pointed out.
And
So-
and can I ask you, like, again, if we remove this, there's a chance that they're gonna like not like they're
So
gonna re-
removing it does not say, we don't want you to do this anymore. We're saying these other things are our priority.
okay,
It's already been funded, so
Yeah.
we don't have.
Sorry, I was just gonna say to your point, Cindy, removing it doesn't mean I don't think they're gonna take it out of the budget. Removing it just means that there are other things they're gonna put on the list of priorities.
okay,
Let's start with Cindy Vandenbosch.
remove,
Victor Swinton,
remove,
Sam Sierra,
Remove.
Jerry Chan,
Remove.
Katie Walsh, Katie Walsh,
I'm gonna abstain this one.
John DeLupa,
Remove.
Cynthia Gonzalez,
Remove.
Sandra Alfonso,
remove,
Christina Lem,
Remove.
Julio Pena.
Remove.
So we have removed one item. We are adding 5 items. That would necessitate the final 4 items on our list to drop off. So why don't we just look at those and make sure we're all good with that?
Jeremy, I have a proposal to remove an additional one.
Oh, okay. What would that be?
Well, it would really be just in terms of priorities, number 17, the provide comprehensive bicycle safety training for all who wish to receive such in CD7 and put into its place either the truck route or the Third Avenue corridor study.
But we
I mean,
have
it's not
numbers
that I
for that,
don't-
so that would be remove 17.
Yeah, I mean, I of course, bicycle safety is important, but in terms of like the impact that a traffic study could have, that would also include such things as like,
Okay, there are other ways to advocate for these things. It doesn't necessarily have to be in our capital and expense budget priorities.
right. So I'd just like to propose that.
I second that.
Okay, so then, I guess, any discussion on that before we vote on it?
I propose we move it. So that was my original one. So
Oh,
we
yes.
need to vote on that one first before we vote for this one.
So Jerry, I disagree, and I will ask my chair on that. If we vote to remove it, then there's no need to discuss moving it, but if we vote to keep it, then we could discuss removing it. So, but does the chair? I'm sorry?
That was confusing, actually. So there's no
So Jerry has previously proposed moving item number 17.
moving it. Okay, okay.
Cindy has proposed removing it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I am suggesting is if we remove it, there's no need to discuss moving it.
Correct. I agree with that. I missed the first. I thought you said the first moving was remove, so that was confusing to me. Okay.
I think
great.
everybody's thoroughly confused now.
Yes, I've been doing this for many years. I get confused too. No, let me say why we want to move 17, right? Since we talk about bicycle safety and stuff, right? So I don't know that if folks have noticed that if you walk the neighborhood, there's a lot of folks, right, elderly, being taking their children to school. Most of them are on e-bikes or bicycle that they are not wearing. The kids are not wearing helmets. Okay, so what's that mean, right? Public safety is very important. Children's safety is very important, right? But we need to educate the parents, the guardians, the grandparents, why that you need to put a helmet on a kid when you're on an e-bike. But guess what? If something happened, the kid is not just going to the hospital. The kids will be removed by child services away from the parents, right? So this is why we need to keep it and move it to a higher priority. Because again, walk the neighborhood in the morning and in the afternoon when school get out. Most of the kids on the scooters, on the e-bike, that are being picked up by the guardians are not wearing helmets. So safety is very important, children's safety.
I have Julio next.
I'll let Katie go first.
This is just a comment, and I need others to chime in, but the scooter shops, I think like we've talked about this before, but I just know from like being that person that goes into scooter shops and talks to people and asking them what information they get from the city and what they don't and what's required. And I've done this on shops in our district on 4th and on 5th and on 7th. Hit or miss. But anyway, my point is that there's nothing so whenever I've had these kind of just like check-in random conversations, I'm told that the shop owners don't hand anything out. Like there's no sort of, and now you bought this and, in a language accessible to you, here's information you need to have, or here are requirements. Someone can correct the record. I feel like we've been told that there is supposed to be something that is supposed to be provided. I feel it was a conversation, I think it was with NYPD a couple months ago, talking about how like all scooter shops are supposed to, I don't know, someone jump in and let me know. But basically anyone I've surveyed, there's never anything. So I'm saying all of this because there's a lot we could do. There's a lot we should be doing and that we're not by way of the city. Right. And so I'm just to say, like, is this the best place for it to show up? Are there other things that are just not being done that are actually on the books that are supposed to be being done, right, by like other agencies and departments? So for what that's worth, I just wanted to share that.
Julio,
Katie took the words right out of my mouth.
Jerry,
Too many mouths on my table. I don't think the shop are doing anything right, because I know NYPD did come out one time to talk about public safety, and that was it. DOT supposed to come out and continues educating the community and giving out free helmets and stuff, which I guess because of no funding, they never did it in this neighborhood.
Yeah, and there's not even, like they said, there's nothing, no drop-offs, no flyers, no nothing. I mean, there's nothing that's coming to them that I mean, and I asked the question, if you were given something in different languages and you kind of basically understood, would you be willing, when you hand the receipt, would you be willing to hand it to them? And they were like, yeah, sure. I mean, I've asked about 3 different shop owners, like they don't have to pay, and it's just something there. There's a willingness there.
Yeah, they never drop it off. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Right. It's not available. It's not, nothing is being made available that can be handed to someone when they buy an electric scooter.
John DeLupa.
Yeah, I just want to say the same thing. I recall that meeting as well, and I recall the police mentioning that there is some kind of educational material that's supposed to exist, that's supposed to be given to the shop owners to give out concerning the requirements for helmets, licensing, and all this stuff, depending on the types of vehicle they buy, but that there is some breakdown there. And I'm not sure whether the expense item is the place to have it, because I feel like it might be a bigger issue with crosstalk, because I feel like there was even mention of another agency, maybe DCWP, being involved as well. So I'm really not sure about this item, whether it should be on here at the moment.
I actually have I'm going to piggyback on that really fast, because it does sound like it's just an implementation issue with an agency. And, you know, this is also what we're saying. It's an opt-in service too, you know, so I don't know. It's like, it should be, if you're going to have it, it should be mandatory, you know, and so I also not sure this is the place for it.
Cindy Vandenbosch.
I'm going to pass it back so we can keep this moving.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this? So the idea is we are voting whether or not to keep this item. Should we choose to keep it, then there will be a discussion on where it should be placed.
Jeremy, before you move on, I'd like to see if there's unanimous consent to remove item 17. Is there any objection to removing? Hearing and seeing none, it is removed.
Thank you. Jerry has also suggested that item number 9, and this happens every year, mixed capital and expense. So
that's fine. Item 9.
The corner trash basket pickup, increasing it. Jerry would like that to be higher. Where would you
No,
like?
I say move, right? I don't mean higher, lower. I think we should move it to lower.
So make
or we move it.
I think, sorry, I just wanted to, I think it'll be moved lower because we're going to be adding other things higher. So it'll automatically be moved lower. Is that correct, Jeremy?
At least 3 items above it now. So it would move down 3.
So yeah, so I think that'll solve the problem, Jerry.
Would you be amenable to that, Jerry?
Well, yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. And then item number 15, which is increased funding for sewer and catch basin maintenance. This has been a big issue, particularly in the past few months. actually past year because of lots of flooding complaints that we've had from bad weather. They have also increased catch basin cleaning. I'm not sure it serves our needs yet.
It does. Can I say something? So I don't know, you a couple months ago, maybe 3-4 months ago, there was a big flood. 8th Avenue turned into a river.
Yep.
With the reason that it turned into a river, most of the catch basin was clogged.
Yep.
Right. And then I worked with the city council, and then most of the catch basin being cleaned on 8th Avenue. Now, I haven't started that on 7th Avenue yet, and 6th Avenue. Right. So we need to move this to higher priority because the weather is changing. People use climate change. Okay, that the street will get flooded more. Right, if the catch basin is not cleaned, because when they repave the street, they throw all the asphalt into the catch basin. All the catch basins collapse. No one clean it. There'll be flooding in the basement. Then we have bigger issues. Again,
So
think
where would
about
you
it.
like to move this?
Let's move it to the top 5, number 2.
So any discussion on that?
As a point of information, I know that there's a meeting that the city council member is hosting. Maybe Jerry, you're involved in that, but specifically on flooding and water. I think it's on October 24th or maybe October 25th, specifically on this issue. Alexa Fabulous is hosting.
October 25th, I know the only thing I know, DCWP, the sanitation, small business are coming to do a walk on 8th Avenue to talk about all the illegal vendors and stuff and garbage on 8th Avenue.
Okay, so is everybody good with moving this to number 2, or you want it lower, or Jerry's proposal is to make it number 2? I see no hands up. I see no discussion. So number 15 will become number 2.
Jeremy, do we have one slot that we need to fill?
No, actually, we have too many. So the lower numbers, like number 24 and 25, will be falling off the list.
Okay, we can, I propose we remove 21.
If you have it in front of you, would you read it?
It's the Restore Community-Based Employment Training Programs for all schools district-wide. It's just so general right now.
Any discussion on that?
Yeah, this is Cindy and my hands up and nobody else's hands up.
Oh, sorry.
Is that okay? But
Go
it just
for
it doesn't exactly make sense. I agree. I don't know what we're asking for here. If other people want to clarify, otherwise I support removing it because I don't think it's entirely, like, if we're asking for vocational and technical training in schools, that's one thing, but that's not what this says. So I don't really know what this means, but maybe someone else can clarify what this means.
I see Julio's hand up.
Yeah, I feel like I remember when we had added this, but I don't, this is the wrong organization, this is the wrong department to be asking, and it is far too broad, but I'm comfortable removing it.
Julio, do you want to ask for unanimous consent to remove item 21?
Yes. If there are no objections to removing item 21, restoring community-based employment training programs in schools district-wide. Seeing
no hands.
none, it is so removed.
Anybody else want to bring anything up for the expense budget? Then I think we've reached the end of this program. So if Christina would like to bang the gavel, we could get to our next meeting.
Wait, we have another meeting?
Yeah, now the capital and expense, I'm sorry, now the finance committee meets.
Seriously? I didn't realize.
So what typically happens after I call roll is you rubber stamp the work that we all just did. You vote in favor of it.
Yes,
But-
I adjourned this meeting, but
You-
are we really gonna have another meeting now?
Yes, this should take 5 minutes, hopefully.
Okay, all right.
Hey, it's Wednesday night. No one got nowhere to go.
Look, all the restaurants by me are closed. I'm gonna have potato chips for dinner. So I don't care.
You guys outside.
So, we will start with calling roll. So Gladys Bruno, Joan Body, Jerry Chan,
Yeah.
thank you, David Estrada, Cynthia Felix, John Garcia, John Johnston, Marilyn Melman, Gabino Morales,
Present.
thank you, Victor Swinton,
Yes.
thank you, Christina Lem,
I'm here.
thank you, Julio Pena,
Here.
thank you. So Christina, typically what would happen, and I'm not saying this is what should happen, is you would now make a motion to support the capital and expense priorities as discussed at our public hearing.
What you said. That's fine.
Somebody like to second that?
I would like to second that motion to support the capital expense priorities as presented in the public hearing.
So then, is there any discussion on the motion? Cindy Vandenbosch?
Well, I'm not on the committee, but do we have a quorum to vote?
Committees don't need a quorum.
Oh, just kidding.
Gabino Morales,
Yes, thank you for giving me the time to talk again. I was just wondering, for number 3, is that still up to par with what we discussed with NYPD cameras, or excuse me?
for the capital or expense, which number 3?
For the capital.
For the capital, what we have is number 3.
For number 3, is the cameras still in play, or do we have to discuss this with the Public Safety Committee still?
The cameras was tabled for the Public Safety Committee.
Oh, okay. So it's not going to be in this year's budget by any
Correct.
chance? Okay.
Correct.
I copy
Okay,
that.
DOT cameras are number 10.
For number 10?
DOT cameras, yes, not the NYPD cameras.
Not, okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else, any additional discussion on the motion or clarification? Christina, do you want to ask for unanimous consent or a roll call vote? You're muted.
Unanimous consent.
So Christina is asking for unanimous consent. If there's anybody who disagrees with supporting this motion, please speak now. Christina, do you see anybody who's?
Nope, I haven't learned the language yet. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
Julio, you've got to give me.
I
the
can't call
script.
votes. That's the
You're good.
whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, so seeing as there is no objection,
Wait, I think we have an objection.
Gabino, is that an objection or is your hand still up?
Yes, it is an objection to,
Okay, so then we have to go
Yes.
to the roll call vote.
Okay, so a roll call vote. A yes vote is to support the motion, which is in support of the capital and expense priorities, as we just discussed. A no vote is opposed to that motion, and an abstention counts as no vote. Let's start with Jerry Chan.
Extreme, I will not vote.
You're not voting, so you're
Nope.
abstaining?
Yep.
Okay. Gabino Morales,
abstention.
abstention. Victor Swinton,
Yes.
Christina Lem,
Yes,
Julio Pena.
Yes,
Motion carries 3-0 with 2 abstentions. We have our capital and expense priorities. Christina, if you'd like to bang the gavel, we could be done for the evening. You're muted. You're still muted.
We're adjourned. Thank you so much.
You, everyone. Thanks.
Good
Great
job.
job.
Bye-bye.
Good work, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Travis, come out and eat.